I have several more examples here. I'm happy to provide them to anyone in this room. John.
Thank you, Caroline. First of all, happy Thanksgiving to
Thank you
and your young family.
So we have been listening to the White House weekly press conference with Caroline Leavitt talking about what's happening with the pause in the immigration green cards, and also talking about the president saying he is sending an envoy to Russia to try to reach some sort of a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. The president saying he is optimistic they are getting closer to that. But right now we want to head back home here with the big story that you all heard about last month. A Batavia chiropractor was arrested for basically secretly recording some of his patients, including multiple children in this case. He is facing several charges, and we have just learned some new information today, some updated information on this case. And joining us now is the Kane County State's Attorney, Jamie Mosser, to update us on what's happening. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again.
Okay, so just to go over, he's facing multiple counts. His next court date isn't until January, but I understand that you guys have some important information, including the fact that you are getting thousands of tips from people who are calling your tip line. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So we're well over 1,000 now at this point of tips. And what we want to let people know is that right now we're trying to prioritize them. If you're calling into the tip line and we were able to link your name with one of the videos, we're making that our top priority, and we'll call you back as soon as possible. If we haven't found any information that you might or might not be on one of the videos, we're still processing a lot of data, a lot of photos, a lot of videos, and so we will get to every single call as soon as we possibly can.
Are you surprised at how many people have called in? Because he ends up facing all of these charges. It's his practice, and all of a sudden there's concerns, more calls coming in. Does this mean that you think you're going to find more victims?
We do think that there'll be more victims. I am not surprised. This was a person who was respected within the community, and when you're respected within the community and you provide service such as this, more people are going to go to somebody who's highly respected than somebody who's unknown. So we're not surprised about the amount that we're having. It's just more deflating to know how much of a negative effect he had on our community.
Let's talk about the kind of practice that he had, because he was a chiropractor, but he did, I understand, a lot of infrared therapy and light therapy, and that did involve the unclothing of some of the patients. Let's talk about this practice. Who was the typical patient that went to him? Did he have a following, because you said he was so well respected?
So people of all ages, both sex, everybody in that area went to him. He did say on his website that he had a specialty that was for children. So obviously he saw both children and adults as a result of all of this. And what he specifically targeted these individuals was in a red light therapy room, which this would be the type of therapy where you would either become completely unclothed or at least partially unclothed. And that's where we found the video cameras.
Okay, so let's go over some of the counts, because I understand there's 5 counts of producing child pornography, 3 counts of disseminating child pornography, 6 counts of possible child pornographic videos, 3 counts of unauthorized recording of a minor through or under clothing. These are the charges that you have been brought against him. As you guys are getting more tips, as you guys are doing more investigating, do you see even more charges? What do you think the focus is going to be?
I do. A lot of the focus that we have now is on these recordings of the patients. What we didn't know when we were executing the search warrant is that he was creating his own unauthorized recordings. We knew about the known child pornography because this is what hit off of a cyber tip, which is the reason why we knew he was doing something. And so as we go through all the videos, I think you're going to see a lot more charges about the unauthorized recording of both adults and children.
Okay, so let's talk about, so he was doing what with these videos exactly?
So what he was doing was he would record people without their consent. It was hidden in a fan on the ceiling of the room that they were in. And people would go in, they would undress, the red light would start, and that's when the recording would be happening.
Was he sharing these videos online?
That we don't know yet, and not something that we would be able to disclose until we're able to fully get through the case and talk to any individuals of whom this might have happened to. But what part of our most recent press release that I wanted people to understand is that throughout the course of our investigation, we found that it was only him who was doing this. None of the other employees at the business, nor did his wife, have any knowledge of what was happening. This was solely done by the defendant in this case and not by anyone else.
And is that typical when you think about, a person who is charged with these kind of charges? Is this something that you usually find that that person was doing this without any other accomplices or anybody else involved?
Absolutely. So these people hide in plain sight, and that's exactly what he was doing. He had a business where he had access to people in a vulnerable state. And so this is something he would have kept hidden for himself and would not likely have shown or told anybody else. And the way the camera was positioned, I don't believe that any person would have been able to see that, whether it be an employee or even a patient who was there.
So the next court date, I understand, is January 8th. It sounds like you guys are gathering a lot of information. It's coming in really fast. What's the next step? What do you see happening now before you hit that January 8th court date?
So we have to turn over all of the information that we have. So we don't turn over all the videos and the photos because those are going to be protected. And so people who may be on that need to understand that it's going to be kept in-house and viewed only by a defense attorney in a protected setting. What we're going to be doing is gathering all of the other reports, any other information that we have, and disclosing all of this to the defense attorney because he needs to do his portion of the job. So this is going to be months before we see a resolution to this case, just because of the amount of evidence that we have right now.
Wow. And it sounds like a lot more coming in. If I may ask you, maybe somebody at home is watching, or maybe somebody has had this experience, or maybe somebody thinks that it could have happened to someone they know or love, or even to them. What do you want them to know?
We want them to know that we're combing through all of this and we are going to protect your privacy and your dignity. And we're also going to hold the defendant accountable for this. If you believe that you may be a victim, please go to our website, which is the Kane County State's Attorney's website. Not only do we have the ability for you to report via email or even over the phone, we also now are working with AID, a local organization, who's going to provide some mental health services to anyone who's been negatively affected for this.
State's Attorney Jamie Mosser, Kane County, thank you so much for joining us and updating us on this case. We appreciate your time.
For having me. Thank you.
Chicago Live will be back shortly. More snow headed our way. We'll let you know what to expect. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We got clobbered with snow on Saturday, and guess what? there's more headed our direction. So Chicago's streets and sanitation already prepared to hit the streets. We are joined by Commissioner Cole Stoller with Chicago Streets and Sanitation. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I want to say, first of all, thank you, because you guys were out and about early on Saturday, and a lot of people who drove in from the suburbs, they said, what's up with the suburbs? Why can't we do what Chicago's doing? You guys get out there in front of everything, don't you?
We try our best. This was a very tough storm. It was really dense, heavy snow. I mean, if anybody tried to shovel this weekend, they saw what this was: heavy, dense snow. So what that means is, I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not trying to take anyone's job here, but that tells me there's a lot of liquid in there. I hope someone can fact check me there, but there's a lot of water in this. And when we hit it and break it down, that water was ending up on the streets, and then we got that flash freeze. And those side streets, it was a tough on those side streets. We're going to aim to do better.
Well, you guys did a great job. Let's talk about what's coming up for this afternoon. More snow headed our way. They're saying it's, going to disrupt a rush hour traffic. What are you guys doing right now?
The last 3 years we've had it pretty good, and it's almost like people forgot how to, hey, this is winter. It's here. So we're going to deal with this storm. We had almost 9 inches over the weekend. We're looking at 1 to 3, but it falls right at our first rush hour. So we're dealing right now. People have snow, over what they dealt with all weekend, and now they're going to come back to getting to work and coming home, and they're going to be dealing with snow again. So this is going to be a tough go. Ask everybody to be patient with us. We're out there working, and hopefully your morning commute on the way in is much better than what you're facing tonight.
Okay, today's also a big day, not only more snow, but it's also the first day of our parking snow ban. And I think you could back me up when I say it seems like every year people are caught off guard. What do you want people to know about this?
Just we beg them. We do not want your car. We do not want your car, but this is a tool that we need so our main streets can stay free and clear. You mentioned at the top of this interview of how the main streets look, how Lakeshore Drive looks, the Saba Lakeshore Drive looks. That's how we want to keep that, because you see what snow building up can do on these side streets. So we can't have that on the bus routes. It's 107 miles. We stay consistent with it being December 1st, April 1st. It averages between 63 and 65 cars a night on average from December 1st to April 1st, because people do start getting the message. But these first couple nights, I don't like it.
Yeah, how many?
We're taking, we took 227 cars today, last night. It's down a little bit from the first time we towed last year from 244. But if I can, I wish we took none. I wish people just got the message. I saw on some news casts that there was people out there moving them at 3 in the morning. We just ask for everybody to look at those signs and know it's the same 107 bus routes. We got to keep the mains flowing so CTA, police, fire, ambulances, and people can get to and from.
Okay, 227 cars. Wow. Okay, if you can, explain to people, maybe some people are new to Chicago, what do they need to look for? How do they know exactly where they are not supposed to be parking? Because, it can be confusing.
Just look for the sign that says overnight parking ban 3 to 7, and it's along bus routes. So if you pull up and it's too good to be true, and you're like, wow, I got this parking right here, it's probably too good to be true.
Okay.
We have that conversation. It's usually people from out of the city. It's usually people that are visiting. It's usually, and we don't want that memory to be for people, they come in and celebrate the holidays, and then they wake up and their car's gone Monday morning.
Yeah, that's
we don't
not
want
good.
that, but we need those main streets open.
Okay, are you going to take my dibs if I stick it outside?
Please don't mention dibs.
I had to bring it up. I mean, it's Chicago, right?
Yeah, dibs.
Let's be honest, Cole.
Dibs it's a little early. Dibs is usually a February conversation.
Okay.
But we just ask everybody, be mindful of your neighbor.
Okay.
Check on your seniors. I'm 57 years old. Nobody over the age of a certain age should be shoveling this snow this weekend.
Okay.
That snow is heavy. go check on your neighbors and see if they need a hand, and let's do what Chicago people do, and that's help each other out.
Cole, you're the best. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you about dibs in February. Thanks for joining us. You take care.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, let's head over to Casey because everybody's been talking about travel. Oh my gosh, thousands of flights canceled over the weekend. Where are we today as people are trying to get back home? Casey, it looks pretty crowded behind you there.
Hey Sylvia, we are live from Terminal 1 at O'Hare, and I am monitoring the flight cancellations, and by the minute they are ticking upward even today. A big part of this is a ripple effect. It's been like dominoes since that storm over the weekend, and airlines are having trouble keeping up. And then of course we're looking at another weather storm coming through this evening with the potential for 1 to 3 inches. So right now, and I'll refresh it here while we are talking, but 199 cancellations at O'Hare so far today. That's taking into account flights in and out of the airport. To put this into perspective, about 50 minutes ago when I was live at 12:30, there were only 165 cancellations. So in less than an hour, we have jumped to nearly 200. Midway, things seem to be okay. Only 1 flight canceled so far today. But for people who have any flights booked as they are heading home from their Thanksgiving plans, check your flight status. Not once, not twice, but a few times before heading to the airport.
I'm just curious, Casey, have you been talking to any frustrated travelers out there? How's everybody handling this?
You know, people take it different ways, right? We always see this. We've heard from passengers who over the weekend were stuck on their plane for 2 hours while the plane was de-iced. But hey, at least they didn't get deplaned, right? It's like, pick your battle. Do you want to sit on the plane for a longer amount of time, or do you want to have to get off and then have to get on another plane? Others that we've heard from were sitting on the tarmac for 2 hours waiting for a gate to open, telling us there were dozens of other planes in this long line just waiting for their gate, or any gate really, to be available. So some passengers frustrated, others taking it with a grain of salt and knowing that it is just the time of year for delays and cancellations.
And is the airport saying anything at all about just letting people know that there's going to be even more cancellations? I mean, as you look up at the board, are you seeing more pop up? Because describing what you did about the increase in just an hour is incredible.
I know, isn't that crazy? And we're monitoring a couple different things, the board here, but also Fly Chicago, which is a great resource for even passengers at home to take a look at the average delays by the minute, average cancellations, and then also Flight Aware is a great resource as well. That's what we use to monitor cancellations and delays, and that is updated in real time. But another tidbit that we want to share, and this is not good news, but Chicago is leading on FlightAware's misery map right now. So if you search misery map, you can find, it's a nice map of the whole country, shows the major airports, and O'Hare is taking the lead right now in terms of cancellations there. So not something we want. We'd like to see that come down, but I don't know if that'll happen today because of the weather we're expecting and this domino effect that is making it harder for airlines to catch up. But you know, the security line isn't so bad right now. It hasn't been terrible since we've been here. Things are at least moving a bit. We've seen it much worse in previous weather events and winter coverage here at O'Hare. So not too bad right now. There is a really long line over at Lufthansa for people who are heading to Germany. Seems like they all kind of rushed here at once. And once the ticketing counter opened, there was kind of like a mad dash to get up there, but it hasn't really moved much because all of these people are checking in and checking their bags. We talked to one man, he is heading to India, so he has 3 legs. He's going first to Germany, then he is, or Frankfurt I should say, then Munich, then to India. So total about 18 hours for him. So fingers crossed for his sake that nothing along the way gets delayed.
Yeah, certainly fingers crossed for that, and definitely don't want to be on the misery map. Hopefully today's the worst day. Thanks for that, Casey. Let's find out what more we can expect with our snow
Yeah,
that's
the
headed our way.
Casey, right?
Yeah, right?
Caitlin Cody.
Caitlin Cody's joining us
Casey,
now.
Casey.
Okay, here we go. More
Yeah.
snow. Let's talk.
Another round of snow. So we have a winter weather advisory in place right now, this afternoon until midnight, starting at 2 p.m., so in about 45 minutes. So starting off with that map, you can see that all of us are included in this winter weather advisory because we are all getting in on the snowfall. This afternoon, the coverage is going to increase. And then as we get on into tonight, that's when finally the drier weather will return. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Our graphics are working. So let's time this out, okay? I wanted to show you guys because the snow is moving in now, as mentioned. Most of this is going to be light, kind of drier snow, especially north of the city. We could have a few bands south of Chicago that drop some heavier snowfall, and that's where we have the better opportunity of getting in on the 3 to 4 inch range, 1 to 2 as we get up towards the Wisconsin border. Either way, 345 when this snow is falling, drops in visibility, quick accumulation on the roadways could lead to slick conditions. Temperatures are hovering around 30. And then by this evening, 7:15, notice we all still have the snow. So the concern today is going to be timing of the snowfall. As we get into tonight, the snow finally moves out, and then tonight it's going to be very cold, dropping down into the teens for many. And then tomorrow we have a quiet day with dry skies before more snow is possible on Wednesday. So talking about the snow today, again, the best chance on getting that 2 to 4 inch range is going to be south of I-80, even south of I-88. As we get north, that's where we have the 1 to 2 inch range for snowfall accumulation. So this isn't a ton of snow, but it still could be slick. Yeah, the timing. But then also, I wanted to show the 7-day forecast because we are going to have brutally cold temperatures Thursday. So tomorrow, again, 28. It's going to be cold, absolutely, but dry. And then on Wednesday, we have the chance for that snow returning. But then we're dropping down to 5 Thursday morning as the actual temperature. So the feel-like temperature Thursday morning could be around 15 to 20 degrees below zero. And then a high of only 18.
Whoa.
Sunny,
Not ready.
but then we have the chance for snow again Friday night. This weekend's looking quiet, low 30s, so a little bit better. But today we're about 10 degrees below normal, so very cold, very winter-esque out there. And yeah, through the afternoon today, if you have plans to drive around, which I know a lot of us can't avoid it, you know, it's
you
the
have to
evening
get back
rush.
and forth. Yes, we were talking to the Streets and Sanitation Commissioner. He was talking about the snow that came down on Saturday, how it was very wet, and it made things even harder, and things were icing over. Is that the kind of snow we're going to see, even though not as much, obviously?
Drier snow, which is north of the city especially. South, you could see some wetter snow, but it looks like the bands are going to be mostly that light, fluffy snow. But the issue with that kind of snow is it can blow around really easily.
So it's hard to see?
Right. So drops in visibility, and it definitely still could be slick. So just take it slow out there, leave plenty of space. Right now we're dry in the city, you can see from these camera shots, but we're starting to see a little bit of snow moving into portions of LaSalle County, Jasper, Newton counties. But again, that swath of snow slowly moving to the northeast, and it's going to be snowing this afternoon, this evening, into tonight. And then it will finally dry out. How are you feeling about all of this?
You know what? I think it's time, although I have to say we broke a record on Saturday, as you said. I mean, that was a snowfall that I don't remember seeing in November. And I've lived here a long time. I know it's happened, but we haven't had this kind of snow for a while, so it's a little shocking, isn't it?
I know it.
Right?
And it's been so mild. And then we get hit with the record snow on Saturday. And I believe the 7th record, November.
Really?
Already.
Wow.
But yeah, more than 8 inches for many of us in Chicagoland on Saturday. But Anthony and I were talking this morning on Chicago Now about how it was almost perfect timing for most of us, right? Unless you had to work on Saturday.
Right.
But getting the snow on Saturday, and then on Sunday we had the day to enjoy the snow afterwards.
Yes.
And then Monday, you know, most of the main roads are good to go as of now. But we're getting hit again, multiple rounds this week.
3:45-ish is when it's going to start, and it's going to continue for how long?
So the winter weather advisory is in effect from 2 until midnight. So we're already seeing the snow start to move in. But yeah, by this evening, definitely going to be the main time for the snow to be coming down. And then after midnight, we're seeing drying. But northwest Indiana, you'll have some lingering snowfall into the early part of tomorrow.
Well, I see those temperatures, and I'm looking at 32, 33, no big deal. Thank goodness Thursday is only one day of 18. I mean, that's incredibly cold for this time of year, right?
Everybody should get on their snow pants.
Yeah.
yeah, we should be 10 degrees warmer than today. So 40s are normal, upper 30s, low 40s this time of year. So.
We are ready here. Ready or not, I should say.
Brace yourself, it's
here
coming.
It comes, right?
Yeah.
And I love that you're wearing pink, because I always notice on her maps, the most hazardous areas are in pink. Did you wear that on purpose?
Yes. Yes.
You're a snow hazard
No,
today.
I just have a lot of pink.
Okay.
Brr.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Right now, we're going to take a little break. Chicago Live, we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Chicago Live. I'm Sylvia Perez. We're heading to look at what's happening in Evanston right now because there's a school board meeting that's taking place tonight that will decide the fate of 4 schools in that district to decide whether or not those schools should be closed. Joining us now is Hope Perry. She is a reporter for the Evanston Roundtable. Hope, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, let's talk about the significance of this. First of all, let's get a little background history. Why are these schools being considered for closure?
Yeah, well, this is a long and complicated story that's been going on for some time. Essentially, the district has been overspending its financial means by about $10 to $15 million every year for the past several years. And what this means essentially is that you have building debt, and that's called a structural deficit. So these school closures are a potential solution in the view of the district and some board members to cut costs year over year that could eat into that structural deficit. So this is one solution that people see, but not everybody agrees with it, which I'm assuming is something we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and I understand that this has already come up for a vote and it was declined, so now they're going back again.
Yeah, so this is actually a little bit complicated because what they're voting on tonight is not actually to close schools. They're actually voting to start a process. So the state of Illinois mandates that for every school that a board wants to close, you have to hold 3 meetings, 3 public hearings about that. So what they're actually doing tonight is voting whether or not to trigger those public hearings. They're not actually voting tonight whether to shutter a school. And there's also only 3 schools that are on the docket for potential closures, but they're in 4 different combinations, which I know is very confusing, but there's actually only 3 schools that are possibly on the chopping block. They have voted on this before. A board member actually resigned. So there's typically 7 members on the Board of Education for District 65, but 1 member resigned at the beginning of November, leaving 6 members, and they have deadlocked on different scenarios, meaning that they haven't been able to make any progress.
Wow. Okay, so you are right. This is complicated because there's 3 schools, but there's 4 different combinations.
Yes.
Let's first of all, let's talk about why these schools in particular have they been looking at. Is it because they don't have a large attendance? I imagine there are families who are very upset about this.
Yes, so we've heard from many families across Evanston, Skokie, who are understandably, worried and upset about this process. The way that the district went about selecting these schools is they convened 3 separate subcommittees of parents, community members, and district administrators to evaluate different aspects of the district. One of those aspects was facilities. So like actual school buildings. What do they look like? How old are they? Are they falling apart? Are they in good shape? How many students go there? How many students do they serve? How many students could they serve if the building was full? Answering all these questions. And then based on the feedback of that facilities committee, they created these school scorecards, which they then weighted in different categories. Now, I know this is very complicated, so stay with me. One of the things that is really valued by a lot of Evanston families is walkable schools. Evanston is unique in that it has mostly walkable elementary schools, K-5 schools. So one of the things that was heavily weighted in this was geography. If you close a school, how does that affect walkability for students? Other measures included how many students would have to move, as well as whether or not schools are ADA accessible, things like that. So that's how they came up with these scores, and then they ranked them and based on their scores and presented them to the community. And these are sort of the scenarios that they've come to that would have the least impact according to the district's analysis.
Wow. Okay. Least impact, except for those who are sending their children to school there and, as you said, able to walk their children to school. So we're talking Willard Elementary, Kingsley, and Lincolnwood. So those are the 3 schools. And then they're going to vote eventually on not only those schools, but a combination. Why are they breaking it down that way?
Yes. Okay. Great question. So the way that they've done it is there are 3 schools that are on the table for possible closure, but they're in 4 different combinations. So I understand that this is really confusing, and this is what I do every day.
Yes.
So Willard Elementary is a school that you mentioned, right? That school is only up for closure in 1 of the 4 scenarios, but Kingsley Elementary is up for closure in 3 of the 4 scenarios. So there's like a kind of a different risk continuum here.
Wow.
Kingsley Elementary, because it's included of 3 of the 4 scenarios, is seen by many to be, the highest risk. And I've talked to Kingsley parents who have said, that they are kind of, they've kind of seen this coming down the road for a while now, and it's not like they're okay with it, but they've sort of accepted this. So that's sort of the state of things, I guess.
Wow. At Lincolnwood, how many scenarios does that one come up in?
Lincolnwood is included in 2 scenarios, a scenario that would close only Lincolnwood Elementary and in a scenario that would close both Kingsley Elementary and Lincolnwood Elementary. The biggest divide right now on the school board is not on which combinations of schools to close, but really on how many schools to close. 3 of the board members have consistently stated that they want to close 1 school this year, in addition to Bessie Rhodes, a magnet school, a K-8 school that's already slated to close at the end of this year based on a decision by the Board of Education last year. And 3 other board members want to close 2 schools in addition to that K-8 magnet that's already closing.
So let's talk about this, because this is a very touchy subject matter, obviously, and not to mention the fact the whole scenario combination thing complicates even more, and probably a lot of people don't really understand. I'm trying to grasp this myself. How volatile, how hot of a subject matter is this, not only with the parents, but with the board members who are making these decisions, because they have to be getting a lot of pressure, not only from each other, but from people who live in that area saying, no, we don't want this.
Yeah, I mean, board members are definitely hearing from everyone. I mean, I'm CC'd on a lot of emails that go to board members, so I am receiving a very small percentage of the feedback that they're getting from the community. And if you tune in or visit any meeting, you'll see that there's tons and tons and tons of public commenters at every meeting. People really care about this issue. Like Evanston-Skokie School District 65 is a district where, a lot of parents are really involved and are really making their voices heard. There's also, been discussion about which voices aren't being heard, which is something that board members have brought up again and again, specifically with reference to Spanish speakers and Latinos in Evanston-Skokie that might feel that they can't speak out right now because of other situations. So, how board members are feeling, it's hard to say, right? With a lack of consensus publicly, I know that there's tension within the board, and you can see when you watch the meeting, the president of the board, Pat Anderson, clearly wants them to come to consensus, but it's hard to, there's a big difference between saying like, let's all come together and like actually getting people to change their votes. That's no easy task.
Wow. Okay, so let's go back to this whole problem. You mentioned at the very top here, and we can't let this slide, that there has been an average overspending of $10 to $15 million over how many years, and how did this happen?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and something that I think the district itself is still trying to unravel. They actually have, a few weeks ago at one of their meetings, the board actually approved they're looking for a firm to do a forensic audit of the school's finances. And the period of that audit is kind of up for debate. So when you ask, like, how long has this been going on? That's actually a question that the district is trying to answer for itself. Many viewers may know that the former superintendent of District 65 schools, Dr. Devon Horton, has been indicted by the federal government on charges of alleged embezzlement from the school district. And so there are a lot of questions that people have about, like, how much of this financial mismanagement is from, like, linked to those potential allegations, or how much of it is maybe completely unrelated. There's a lot of questions that we just don't have answers to yet. So I wish I could give you a more concrete thing, but there's actually a lot of people working right now to try to figure this out, and it's tied up in a lot of other stories as well.
Are a lot of people blaming Devon Horton for this?
I think it would be fair to say that there are people who are blaming the former superintendent based on that federal indictment. Again, no judgment has been made.
Right.
But those are the allegations against him right now. I will say that in addition to the former superintendent, there are parents at every meeting who come and ask for school board members to resign who were on the board during Horton's term. They view them as complicit in the allegations against Horton. So, that further complicates things, right? Because there are parents who feel that some board members should resign because maybe they're complicit. Again, these are all allegations. I'm not saying I can
guilt by
substantiate
association
any of this,
kind of thing, if nothing else, right? So where is
Exactly.
Devon Horton right now? Where is Devon Horton right now?
So Devon Horton was serving as the superintendent for DeKalb County schools in Georgia. But following the indictment, he was let go from that position. And there is a status hearing later this week, although based on my experience, sometimes that means nothing.
Right.
So couldn't tell you exactly, but that's where we're at in the court process.
Wow. So give me an example. You said you've seen some of the correspondence between parents and the school board. Give me an example of either an email you have seen or a parent who has spoke at one of these meetings. What has really stood out to you? Like, what really hit close to home that kind of brings this story to the personal side of what these people are experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is a deeply personal story, and, to see just the emotions that people come up to the podium with is what I'm thinking of. There have been parents who have said, a lot of parents have echoed this sentiment saying, I moved to Evanston because my kids are mixed race or from different backgrounds, different cultures, and I wanted them to feel like they belong, and they do feel like they belong in their school, and this community has been important to us. And they're expressed worry about, moving schools possibly impacting that community that they've built for themselves and for their kids. Also, when parents speak about students who have disabilities, especially students on the autism spectrum, there are programs in Evanston that are specifically catered to students on the spectrum. Those are really heartfelt statements. And I think it's clear that the board is moved by those statements when they hear them.
So what do you expect by the end of the night to know after the meeting? Nothing will be settled as far as the school's actually closing. What will parents get from this meeting tonight?
Yes, so I will be publishing breaking news at the end of the meeting, so you'll know on our website exactly what happened. But to be honest with you, I actually I can't say for certain that there will be an outcome. It's possible that the board could tie again and there might not be a decision. If that's the case, it's almost certain that the board won't be able, that no additional schools will close in Evanston at the end of this year, with the exception of the school that is already set to close, Dr. Bessie Rhodes, which was voted on last year. So it's hard to say. It's possible they could deadlock again. It's possible that maybe they will vote to advance this scenario, but we're really not going to know until we get there. People are being really tight-lipped about what's going on. And I wouldn't want to predict something because I genuinely don't know.
Right. So if these schools any of them were voted to close, when would this closure happen?
Yeah, so it would be at the end of this year. And I also want to just point out that the chyron that says it may close 4 schools, that's not accurate in any way. The scenarios would be either 1 or 2 schools closing, or 0 if they can't come to a consensus. And there's only 3 schools involved in this scenarios. Now, what will we know? What we will know is that there will be, if they do vote to advance a scenario of 1 or 2 school closures, they'll have to schedule public hearings, like I mentioned before, to actually have hearings on whether or not to close schools. So if they vote to close 1 school, they'll have to have 3 hearings. If they vote to close 2, they'll have to have 6, 3 for each school. So those hearings will have to take place before the winter break. And so that will be sort of the next development, is when those hearings will take place, and we'll hear again from families and caregivers about how much they care about their schools.
Hope, you are the ultimate example of why we need local news. I mean, you've got this story. It is so confusing, as you said, so complicated. You have this all figured out. The parents will be able to go and hopefully read your information tonight, because there's a lot involved here, and it's not easy. And it sounds like, too, that there's no easy solution.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me on. I know that it's really confusing, and I always invite people to, reach out and ask questions. I think that's really important. We're also a nonprofit, so we're funded by our readers, and it's totally free for anyone to read. So, yeah, really appreciate speaking with you.
Well, it's great talking to you, and we will look for your report. Thanks for joining us and helping us break all of this down. We look forward to seeing what the end result is, and look forward to reading your report. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Chicago Live will be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We've been talking about snow and the weather because of Saturday's incredible snowstorm. And then, of course, as you heard Caitlin said a little bit earlier, we are having more snow just in time for rush hour. It's not going to be anywhere near as bad as it was on Saturday, but because it's rush hour, it's obviously going to cause some problems. One of the things that you might not know is that snowfall on Saturday not only disrupted people living in this area, but there was supposed to be these huge events happening on Saturday, and they had to be postponed. So the Illinois High School Association is joining us now to talk about how they had to reschedule all 4 of the football state championship games. And we are joined by Matt Troja with the Illinois High School Association. He is the Associate Executive Director. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, so for people in your world, these football state championship games are huge. Families get together, they go to this location, it's a big deal. And Saturday's snowstorm basically didn't allow these games to be played. So tell us what happened.
Yeah, so we play 8 total state championship games, 4 on Friday, 4 on Saturday, and this is all happening at Illinois State University in Normal. And we were able to get the 4 games in on Friday, but about on noon on Friday, after some meetings all morning with ISU and their emergency management system folks, they kind of made the call that the games were not going to be played on Saturday. They were going to close their campus. None of their workers were going to be available. So this is our 51st year of the state finals, and the first time that this has ever happened. So we were really left to scramble, and we're lucky to kind of rework and get the games scheduled here. We're going to play 2 of them on Tuesday at ISU, and then we moved the 7A and 8A games to Northern Illinois University on Wednesday.
Okay, and I know some of the schools that we know in our area include Brother Rice, St. Rita, Mount Carmel, and Oswego. So you are moving these games. I want to know, what kind of impact did it have? Because you probably already had all of the families who thought they were there, the players who thought they were going to be playing on Saturday, they were already there ready to go. What did you guys have to do? How did you get a hold of everybody?
Well, we have a good system in place to communicate with the schools, and we were able to communicate far enough in advance. We had 3 of the 4 teams from the first 2 games who were scheduled to come down, stay overnight. And initially, it was our hope that we could potentially play those 2 games on Saturday and postpone the 7A and 8A. But as we worked with ISU, it looked like the way the forecast was lining up that it wasn't going to be possible, and did end up being the case. But so we were able to alert everyone before they got on the road. So that was a key part of that. So then the focus then just shifted to, where and when we were going to play the remaining games. And, there's a ton of just obstacles in the way to do that. One of the reasons we play them on Thanksgiving weekend is because these college campuses are empty at that time, and it's easy to park, and it's easy to hold the games and have all those resources available. But it's a much different story once students are on campus and classes are ongoing. So there was just a myriad of challenges as we tried to reschedule.
It's amazing living where we do, and we're used to snow, but it's hard to believe that you guys, in your 51-year history, this is the first time this has happened?
Yeah, it's as shocking as that may sound. And, we kind of joked that, we thought it would be more likely that if and when it happened, it might be an unseasonably warm weekend where we might get lightning and big storms like that wouldn't allow us to play, because it just feels like the winters have gotten warmer and warmer through the years and started later and later. So we always knew it was a possibility. Obviously, it's Illinois, it's the Midwest, and late November, early December, anything can happen. But we'd had a pretty good track record and been pretty lucky up to this point.
And I love that despite the fact that this has never happened in your history, you did have a backup and you guys were ready. Okay, so let's go back over. What does this mean? So we're talking Class 5A games, Class 7A. Tell me again, walk me through who's going to be playing and where it's going to happen.
So tomorrow on Tuesday, we're going to hold our 5A and 6A games at Illinois State University in Normal. 5A is going to be Providence Catholic out of New Lenox versus St. Francis out of Wheaton. And then the 6A game, that'll be at 3 o'clock. And then right after that game at 6 p.m., we will have East St. Louis, and they will play Fenwick out of Oak Park.
Okay.
So that is the Tuesday action. And then when those games wrap up, our staff will head up north to DeKalb. And on Wednesday at NIU, it'll be the same schedule. At 3 p.m., we'll have the 7A championship, and then that'll be followed by the 8A championship. And you hit on that a little bit already, but 7A is St. Rita versus Brother Rice, and then 8A is Mount Carmel versus Oswego.
So I have to ask you, are these kids in school? I mean, are they having to like reschedule, their school courses because it's not time for, winter break yet?
Yeah, school is back in session. We see more and more schools take off the entire Thanksgiving week. So everyone is returning today. And that was one of the reasons we didn't look at Monday as an option, because we wanted to give our schools, our administrators, the chance to get in Monday and kind of reconfigure their plans for Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when they were playing. We have 40 sports and activities, and quite a few of them start on school days. The state finals do. You might start playing on a Thursday morning or a Friday morning. So our schools are used to kind of working their schedules around IHSA State Series events. Obviously, it hasn't happened with football before, but some of them will probably get out of school early and bring their students down on buses and things like that. So it's definitely a new challenge, but I think it's one that, as you talked about at the beginning, this is a big deal for the schools that are participating and in the communities. And I think they'll be excited and make it work.
I want to talk about that a little more because since you're going to a different location, how does that affect the whole feeling of the game and what they're used to doing? Describe to us what it's like going as a player, going as a parent or a family member. What is the vibe like for these huge games?
Yeah, it is. It's a special experience. I actually had the opportunity to play in one in Champaign way back in 1999. And, I can tell you from a high school athlete perspective, the fact that you're in the state championship, I don't think you really care where you play it. You just want to play it. The fact that you walk into a little bit bigger stadium than you're used to definitely kind of adds to the aura and the mystique of it. It's going to be a great experience at both. Illinois State has hosted from 1974 to 1999, and then we just brought it back there about 3 years ago. Northern Illinois University hosted for 5 years, about 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it'll be a big time environment, and they'll have that feeling of playing in a college stadium, and it'll be great. But at the end of the day, those kids just want to get on the field and play football, and get a chance to raise that trophy after the game.
That is so exciting. Now I have to ask you, because you brought it up. You played in 1999. You were in one of these games yourself. What do you remember about that experience?
Oh man, I remember the relief when it was over. What's that?
It wasn't that long ago.
No, it's a special experience. I went to school. Those were my friends that I grew up with my whole life. And it was something we had talked about since day one of high school and dreamed about. And, there was some pressure that came along with it. I remember the relief after it was over. And the thing that I try to relay to kids now, especially on the losing end, is that, 20, 25 years later, the win or the loss isn't really as big a deal. It's just the fact that you're going to be able to get together every 5 to 10 years with all those guys, if not more, and kind of just talk about the times, and you're going to hold a special place in your school and your coach and your community for forever and be talked about. And so it's a special thing that sort of lives on, and I think the result becomes less important over the years.
Oh, I love that. I love that you have that special memory and you're giving them all this great advice. Finally, what do you want parents to know who are going to be going to the games that are coming up? Is there anything they need to know to prepare for the move, what you guys have done?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking that. If folks are coming to the 5A and 6A games tomorrow at ISU, we'd ask you to go on our website, ihsa.org. We just posted some updated information. As I said, we had a kind of a fan guide on there, but that was for when students weren't going to be on campus and all the parking lots were going to be ours to use. And so a lot of that has changed. So we just posted a new guide on our website. And for the folks for Wednesday, we're very close to doing the same, to getting something up. So just continue to monitor ihsa.org. And then finally, the other thing I would say is that if you purchase tickets already, those are going to be honored at whatever site you go to, the 5A, 6A games or the 7A, 8A games. They will be honored. And we now have a link up on our website to buy tickets for NIU. And if you did buy tickets and now can't make it because of the reschedule, we also have information on there on how you can get those tickets refunded. So yeah, hopefully that'll help folks. But yeah, we just encourage you to keep checking on ihsa.org.
Oh, that's great. So you can get your refund if necessary, and then you can also buy tickets. It's not too late.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Matt Troja, thank you so much. Illinois High School Association Associate Executive Director. Thank you for sharing this information. A lot of parents want to know. And also, thanks for sharing your personal experience. It kind of just brings home the importance of this organization and an event like this for all the families. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, great to see you. Chicago Live is wrapping up the 1 o'clock hour. 2 o'clock starts soon with Tia Ewing. In the meantime, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live, a new face as we roll into a new hour. I am Tia Ewing, joining you on this amazing Monday. We have a lot coming up in the show. We're going to start out with talking about how a lot of you are probably already doing this, using AI shopping assistants during this Cyber Monday. We are here, and we have the lead analyst with Adobe Digital Insights joining us to talk all about it, Vivek Pandya. Vivek, thank you so much for your time. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name there. If I did, make sure to correct me. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to talk to you about this. How are people using AI shopping assistants this time of year?
Well, it's the first official season that is allowing generative AI influence to impact the buying journeys for consumers. So they're leaning on it for ideation, coming up with Christmas lists, and figuring out what they're going to get for people. Then they're also moving to use cases where they're trying to figure out where the best prices are for certain goods, where they can find alternate or cheaper versions of goods. So as consumers get more and more comfortable with these generative AI platforms, we're seeing the visit traffic really scale. Just over Thanksgiving, we saw traffic from generative AI platforms to retail sites eclipse over 800%. So it's a pretty impactful trend that's happening right now.
Looking at the data, is there any indication of exactly what kind of deals people are looking for? Are they looking in the electronic space? Are they looking for apparel? Is there any indication in the data in terms of that?
It's a great question, and we've been looking at it from the standpoint of where this traffic is landing, and we're finding that it's hitting electronics pages, cosmetics, where we're seeing it drop on apparel. But electronics is very key because there's a lot of complexity involved with some electronic devices. So televisions or computers, like how much memory, RAM, all those things does a person need for their computer? What's the best option? And what we're finding is these LLMs are then kind of traversing the internet, finding where the conversation is around that product, seeing how well it's reviewed and things like that, and then serving that back to the consumer as a distilled answer. So more complex purchases, jewelry is another one. That's what these LLMs are really, they're really shining in providing guidance there.
Vivek, what does this tell you? You know, there are people out there that are still a little apprehensive when it comes to AI. Any indication of maybe even ages of some of the people that feel a little more comfortable with using this, or is this widespread?
I would say it's pretty widespread, and that, you know, we do see the deep usage across millennials and Gen Z, but then you do get the sense that many generational cohorts don't want to they want to try it out. They don't want to be left behind by this capability. And so we're seeing experimentation and testing across different age groups. And the opportunities are pretty wide spanning. You know, people start with use cases like maybe using it for homework or trying to figure out how to code with some program or something like that. And then all of a sudden they're shifting it for more and more activities and behaviors, and shopping is really expanding as one of them.
You know, there's this one electronic, I'm not going to say what it is in case my kids see this, but there's one electronic that I've been leaning towards. It's kind of new on the market, hasn't been out there a long time. How is AI catching up with this technology? Because, for example, because this particular asset is out there, it's brand new. I did go to AI to see what it offers, what it's all about. How does AI catch up so fast? This literally just hit the market right before the holidays.
It's really fascinating because the way these LLMs work is they're not just capturing, existing link information out there, information that's been out there for a while that has a lot of depth and history. It's more the overall conversation around a product. It's social becomes very important because when you think about how consumers are saying, what's the best, what's top, what's hot right now, all that's a bit subjective, but it can take that broader social conversation happening on a TikTok or a Reddit or any of these sources, and then also take in listicle information, top 5 items that will be coming out next year or something like that, and really absorb all that and triangulate where is the broader consensus around this product or item, and then communicate that back over to the user.
Yeah, pretty impressive. We are here at Cyber Monday, but I want to go back a little bit and talk about Black Friday because we have heard, over this year, we've heard a lot of people say, spending and prices are up, especially like if you go to the grocery store. At one point, we know a lot of goods were impacted by tariffs. Some still are. What did we see happen on Black Friday that maybe we haven't seen in years past?
Well, it's been fascinating to profile back Black Friday this year because in the past, especially when we think about when we're coming out of the COVID pandemic and things like that, we saw consumers a little more flush with cash and then, buying early, kind of, not really, prioritizing Black Friday. But what we found now is consumers are in a sort of broader cost of living, they're conscientious about prices and trying to get value. And essentially, they're really kind of essentially coming back to Black Friday and Cyber Monday and Thanksgiving and these marquee days, because even though they recognize there are discounts happening across the board, they feel like they'll get the best discount on those major days. So that's why we saw Black Friday get $11.8 billion and grow over 9%, because consumers really view the value of the online space and recognize there's a lot of options out for them. And that's why that's why we saw consumers really tap into Black Friday, Thanksgiving, and what we're expecting for Cyber Monday at about $14 billion. That's all really predicated on this fact that consumers are hunting for value. They're trying to get really strong deals, and they're following through with that.
Vivek, do you think we'll ever return? You know, I remember back in the day, not that long ago, but back in the day enough, where on a Friday, you know, the joy of the family was to wake up early in the morning, get in line, go to the stores. Do you think we'll ever return back to that, considering that it seems like Black Friday has seen this surge online? Do you think it will translate to maybe going back to some of the stores?
It's an interesting question. I think the proxy for that is Thanksgiving as well, because Thanksgiving was, you know, you'd have your meal, and then as a family or something, you'd go out and you'd wait in line. And then once the pandemic forced some of those stores to close on Thanksgiving, and many of them have stayed closed on a regular basis for Thanksgiving, we do see the consumer just pull out their smartphone and really engage in a lot of mobile shopping and impulse shopping. So, and it seems that many consumers really prefer that experience of just being able to get what they need in a very spontaneous, impulse-driven way. So I think we'll have to see what happens on the experiential front with stores and how they try to drive that to get consumers into the store at different points. But I also imagine more of a hybrid experience emerging, where consumers benefit from some in-store experiences, but also all the information and convenience they get out of shopping on a smartphone, that's all preserved. So I think we'll have to see how that wins out. But at the moment, it's very mobile centric and it's very online. And we're seeing about $1 out of every $4 is spent online now. So that's a pretty strong trend.
Yeah, very convenient. And, you know, sometimes you get those updates literally that show up on your phone about some of these sales, which makes it even easier and even more luring to people that are looking for a good deal. All right, Vivek, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Chicago Live on this Monday.
Thank you.
All right, it was a pleasure being with you. Okay, we have a lot more coming up. We're also going to be talking about something really interesting coming out of the state of Minnesota. We're talking about scams. We'll have an interview and break it all down for you right after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We're talking about some really riveting details coming out of Minnesota, saying that more than 400 employees of the Minnesota's Department of Human Services accused Governor Tim Walz of failing to act on widespread fraud warnings and retaliating against whistleblowers. We want to bring in Corin Hoggard into this conversation. He's a reporter in Fox Minneapolis who has been following this. Corin, thank you so much for coming on the program and talking about this. Let's talk about first how you were alerted to this story and really what you have discovered as you've uncovered more details here.
Yeah, honestly, this is a story that's been evolving for several years here in Minnesota now. The issue of fraud is not a new one. We've had a number of trials on the Feeding Our Future case, which was a fraud of maybe, well, 250 million or more and just growing. 78, 79 defendants basically went and took money that was supposed to go to feeding children and basically lied about how many people they were feeding and just pocketed a ton of money. That has trickled into other programs here in Minnesota, Medicaid programs for housing stabilization services and for, you know, some of the other Medicaid money. So basically what happened would be anytime a new program, a social program would start up, there would be kind of a lack of guardrails as they set it up. They wanted people to access this money as easily as possible, which also meant that fraudsters had a lot of access. Whenever they found one of these vulnerable programs, they hit it as hard as possible and took as much money as possible from it. And the U.S. attorney in this area said that it's probably $1 billion or more in fraudulent transactions. So this weekend, Governor Walz was asked about that on Meet the Press. The New York Times wrote about how it happened, how it all came together. And this anonymous account that says it represents 400 plus employees at DHS, which is one of our larger state departments here, about 7,100 employees. This account kind of mirrored what the New York Times was reporting and talked about their efforts to get this information out over the last few years. Well, that account, again, it's an anonymous account, claims to represent 480 or so DHS employees, has been for at least 2.5 years kind of hammering Governor Walz and local Democrats for failing to stop this fraud that developed over the course of several years. And that post that they made kind of talking about the New York Times article, but their own experience in laying out what they believed was happening on their watch, it got 36 million views on X. And so it was just pumping out there in the social media atmosphere. But about an hour and a half ago, I realized that that account has been suspended on X. Don't exactly know why. I can't tell you. I was asking the governor's office about it today, and what they told me was they don't really think that that represents that many people. Here, let me read what they said. We have no idea who runs that account, but we're confident it's not representative of a large group of employees, nor is there any merit to their claims. They said basically the U.S. attorney and the local authorities would be investigating if Governor Walz had been stonewalling this investigation as they claimed. And, the governor did early this year, issued an executive order that said basically any state employee who knows about potential fraud is mandated to report it and is mandated to report it to a couple different parties. So it is, Governor Walz is now a national figure, having run for vice president. He has announced that he'll run for a third term as governor here in Minnesota. I just talked to some Republicans who said, fraud is going to be at the top of their list of things to attack him on, and they have been doing that. And it's something that's just not going away for the governor.
I do want to talk about those attacks, but first I want to ask you, since you're on the ground there, you understand politics and things that happen in Minnesota. Was this an issue that was already percolating when Governor Walz was on the ticket with Kamala Harris as the VP?
Oh, absolutely. And if you checked the the post from allegedly the DHS employees, they said that they tried to make Kamala Harris aware of this when they knew that Tim Walz was on the short list of potential VP nominees, and again, once he got the nomination. So, yeah, we had already had, I believe, well, I can't remember the exact number back in 2024 when he got the nomination back, I think it was in August 24, but there were definitely cases already in the federal courthouse for this Feeding Our Future scandal. That was the first and, to this date, biggest of the scandals.
I want to ask you this part because this has become now a political back and forth. President Donald Trump posting about this, specifically calling out the Somali community there, and Tim Walz then giving a rebuttal to that statement that the president made, calling it a slur. I do want to ask you, is there any indication, definitive here, that the Somalian community there in Minnesota benefited the most from these scams?
I mean, it's undoubtedly true that most, if not, well, almost all of the defendants are of East African descent. I will say, though, federal prosecutors have not tracked any money going to Somalia or to terrorist organizations in Somalia, as far as they have told us. They have not charged anybody with any kind of terrorism involvement in this fraud. The only money that they have tracked outside of this country, at last word, when I was at a press conference with the acting U.S. attorney about a month ago, the only place that they had tracked money going was to Kenya to buy real estate. And so, there are definitely Somalis who are involved in this fraud scandal. Absolutely. Is it benefiting people back in the country of Somalia? According to some folks, even those who want to defend Somalis, they say, yeah, there is money that's being sent back to Somalia from some of the people involved in this. But is it kind of a coordinated, organized effort? They don't believe so.
So these are Minnesota tax dollars. Is there it sounds like the real issue here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, just on the outside looking in, not even from a reporter standpoint, is oversight. Is that the biggest issue here, that there was no overarching oversight to see exactly what the money would be used for, if indeed these were legit organizations? Is that kind of where your reporting has led you?
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue is a lot of this was going on during the COVID pandemic. There was definitely a lack of oversight. When the numbers, of alleged children who were being fed would just skyrocket to a point where it was probably impossible for these people to actually provide that much food to those many children, nobody was double checking. They could have done more, and that was some of the biggest complaints was, okay, so how it happened is there was increased access. So there was push for more accessible social services, and some people found a way to exploit the system. There was insufficient oversight. They did not have good checks and balances, and so that allowed the fraud to flourish. And once, one bad actor found it, it kind of spread among that person's friends, and it just got bigger and bigger. And then the pandemic did create kind of this perfect storm where, there was a lot of assistance needed, and the people in power in politics in Minnesota wanted to make sure that they got assistance. However, the only way to make it easy for them to get that was to kind of take the checks and balances down to a low level, and that was what really allowed these fraudsters to just kind of go haywire inside of the system.
Corin, I must ask you, being on the ground there in Minnesota, you would know this better than I would. If something like this was to break in the state of Illinois, I think most residents would be very upset. The cost of living here is through the roof. We're taxed over and over again. Everywhere you turn, you're being taxed. What is the community saying there, considering that these are taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, it kind of depends on, which side of the political aisle you fall on. I think that, I don't think anybody's happy that this is happening, and, that the governor and the local Democrats who were in power and then are still more or less in power right now in the legislature, did start creating oversight, but not until really the strongest oversight didn't come in until 24 or 25. So by that point, a lot of this had been going on for 5 or 6 years. And I believe that You know, it depends on who you talk to. Nobody's happy it's happening. Some people, though, like, are very upset, point directly, again, like this account that claimed to represent 480 people from DHS. They are very upset that Governor Walz didn't stop it, and a lot of people believe that he allowed it to happen. And one of the quotes in the New York Times article is from an attorney I talk to pretty frequently, Ryan Pasiga, and he said, you know, there were a lot of red flags that were missed. He said no one was doing anything about the red flags. It was like somebody was stealing money from the cookie jar and they just kept refilling it. And I think that, you know, a lot of people are frustrated about that on both sides of the aisle, which is why, you know, even as popular as Governor Walz has been here in Minnesota, him going for a third term as governor is not considered a slam dunk at all.
No, and in fact, Attorney Chris Mandel actually announced that he is going to run for governor of Minnesota, a Republican on the other side of the aisle there. Has Tim Walz actually admitted that there were issues here, that he dropped the ball at all since all of these allegations and all of this has come out, this investigation?
When was the last time you heard a politician say, I dropped the ball?
Never.
No.
Never.
No. Tim Walz will not say that. He actually, you know, on Meet the Press was taking credit for the arrests that have been made as a result of this investigation. Although honestly, you know, most of the investigation has been led by federal authorities and not local authorities. Local authorities are clearly involved, the Attorney General's office especially. We have a Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which is kind of the top state investigative unit, and they are definitely involved in this. But really, this has been driven by federal authorities and the U.S. Attorney's Office, especially. That was under President Biden and again now under President Trump, and they're the ones who have been exposing what's happening. So, you know, the governor, I think he's acknowledged that there is a problem and that he has something to do with it, that he can take steps to stop it. I don't think he's really taken any responsibility for, you know, how huge the problem became.
Yeah, well, I think this is a situation that we will talk about again. Corin Hoggard with Fox Minneapolis. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on Chicago Live, breaking down this very important issue. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much for your time.
You got it, too.
All right. Well, coming up, and I hope I'm right, the producer will yell at me if I'm wrong, we are going to be talking about something really exciting in Chicago. And that's our very own Chicago Bears. I've said it over and over again, Super Bowl. People tell me to pipe down. You're just way too early on this, but I don't think I am. We'll have much more after this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. This is something I think all Chicagoans, no matter where you are across the country, can get excited about if you are a Bears fan. You should be a Bears fan. They are number one right now in the NFC, period, is what I'm told. I didn't know that. I was still holding on to them being first in the NFC North. Here to talk about it is our very own Lou Canellis. Lou, it is an exciting day in Chicago, and I think it's going to last. I've been saying Super Bowl. Am I just a little too early on that, or am I crazy?
Well, here,
I guess it's both.
I'll share this with you. This is the latest in a season that the Bears have held at least a share of the best record in the NFC since the 2006 season. Back then, they had the NFC's best record. They finished up 13-3. And guess what? They went to the Super Bowl. So you might be on to something. I'm just saying.
No, I've been saying it for a couple of the past two games now, and people were like, slow down, the Bears always disappoint. And I just feel a different kind of energy around this time. Are you feeling that too? You know, you get the chance to be there in the stadiums most of the time. Are you getting a sense that the energy is different, maybe compared to last season?
Well, for sure the energy is different. There's been a culture change ever since Ben Johnson took over as head coach with a terrific coaching staff that he put together. I don't think those guys get enough credit. The defensive coordinator, the linebackers coach, the running backs coach. So all in all, they have changed the culture at Hallis Hall. But really, Tia, they needed to win Friday's game at Philadelphia for the national media to say, hey, you know what, we're starting to believe now in this Bears team. Because one could argue that they won a bunch of close games against teams without winning records. They had defeated only one team with a winning record prior to Friday's game against the Eagles, and that was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers right now are hovering on not even having a winning record anymore and falling out of first place in the AFC North. When you go into the defending Super Bowl champions' home and just beat them up physically like the Bears did, and it wasn't even close, now you've got people's attention. And that's what happened to the Bears today. National media, every network, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, you name it, they were talking about these Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I love it. You mentioned records there, and I do want to talk about this record. Most rushing yards since 1985. What does that tell you about this Bears team?
Well, what the number was, truthfully, it was Walter Payton and Matt Suhey were the last two running backs in the same game to rush for over 100 yards. That held true back in 1985. That held true till Friday when DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai each rushed for over 100 yards in that Bears win over the Eagles. Right now, the Bears' offensive line is the best in football. Okay, it just flat out is. They are blowing defensive lines off the line of scrimmage. They own it right now. They're healthy. They've come together. They have the number one running game in football. And what they're doing is they're doing a hell of a job of protecting their quarterback, Caleb Williams.
Well, they're going to play a team, I don't even like saying their name, on December 7th. I call them the Cheeseheads, in Green Bay. What do you expect for that game? What is something to look out for? Are there any major concerns when they go to Lambeau Field?
100%. There's plenty to be concerned about. Number one, you're headed to Lambeau Field against the hated Packers, against the hated Packers fans who will make life miserable for the Bears in Green Bay for the, 32 hours that they'll be there. When you look at the Packers, they've been inconsistent offensively. $220 million man, their quarterback Jordan Love, has had real good games, like Thanksgiving when he threw 4 touchdown passes, and real bad games. But their defense has been consistently good all season long. They have arguably the best pass rusher in football, Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett are your two best pass rushers. By the way, the Bears will face Parsons on Sunday, and then the following Sunday, they'll face Myles Garrett. So the Bears' offensive line will have its hands full. Bears need to run the football at Green Bay, period. It's that simple. If you cannot run the football effectively, then that crowd and that defense, that secondary that Green Bay has, and that pass rush with Parsons will make things real rough for quarterback Caleb Williams. It's a big game, plenty to be concerned about, and if the Bears lose to Green Bay, they will fall down out of first place, potentially in the 6th place in the NFC. That's how competitive the NFC is today, and the Packers would move into first place. It's a real important game for the Bears on Sunday. By the way, we will carry it on Fox 32 Chicago, kickoff at 3:25.
That's the way you tease it, baby, and let them know. All right, Lou, I think it's going to be a tough game, but I think the Bears, they have the momentum.
No predictions yet. No predictions.
No predictions.
Let's see how the week plays out to you. I don't want you to go out on a limb yet. I want you to think about it. I want you to stew on it. I want you to chew on your prediction, and then you'll tell me at the end of the week.
Okay, I'm looking at this. I believe the Packers win at the end. I'm just looking at something the producer sent me as a note, which is important, so correct me on this if I'm wrong. I believe the Packers win at the end of last season was the last game that Virginia McCaskey saw. So if that is true, the Bears have even more to prove here.
Well, the Bears won that football game, you're right, against the Packers at the end of the season. I think, I'm pretty sure with this, the Bears have not beaten the Packers in back-to-back games since 2007. That's long enough. Yep. It's time to end the streak.
Until now, yes. Just like Ohio State beat Michigan. I had to throw that in there.
I know you love that.
As an Ohio State alum. So, yeah, I had to throw that in there. All right, Lou.
I just want to know if your Buckeyes are going to beat the Hoosiers in the Big Ten Championship.
I think that's a done deal. And in fact, I'm going to make a bet with Anthony, who's also a graduate from Indiana. We're going to make a bet on this, but I think it's already a done deal, Lou. Nothing to talk about, just like the Bears and the Packers.
Nothing worse than arrogant Ohio State fans.
The Ohio State University. All right, Lou Canellis, it has been a pleasure as always. I love talking about things that are positive, and the Bears are going in the right direction, positive for all of Chicago. And it will be great if they stayed, I'm sure, in Chicago for a lot of different reasons. I'm sure that's a conversation we can have for a whole nother day. Lou Canellis, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on Chicago Live. I'll see you next time. Okay, we are talking about something really important, really interesting and groundbreaking right after this break. I know that sounds like sarcasm, but it isn't. This is true. AI and spirituality. What does that mean? What does that look like? We're going to break it down right after this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. Maybe you have made the decision that in the year 2026 you want to get closer to the Lord, and a lot of people are already doing this, and there's an app out there for it. There's an app for everything. It's called Hallow, and joining us is Eric Karakas. He is the CTO and co-founder of this app. First of all, thank you so much for your time. I was not expecting what I see in front of me. You look younger, which is kind of like why I'm going in the direction that I'm going to go with this conversation. Talk about how younger people are using chatbots for spiritual guidance, and you appearing, at least to be a younger person, what made you decide to even start this app?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a fascinating trend that we're seeing. I mean, when we first started Hallow about 7 years ago, the biggest thing that we were seeing at that point was a growth in mindfulness meditation apps. So apps like Calm and Headspace, which myself and my co-founders were using at the time. And now today, similarly, there's a trend growing on the AI side of things, mostly with chatbots on that side, even some chatbots that are saying that you can have a relationship with Jesus or trying to replace human relationships, which I think they will never be able to do. They should never do. But the trend for both of those really points to the same thing in my mind. It's that there's a spiritual hunger out there, right? And so we saw it ourselves, my co-founders and I, and we were 25, right, when we started Hallow. And I think it's common amongst a lot of young people today is you see this trend of people disaffiliating with churches within the US. But what's fascinating is that the number of people who are identifying as atheist has not really grown much during that time frame. It's still around 5%. It's maybe grown by just a couple of percentage points. What's really replacing it is this segment of spiritual but not religious folks. And so these are people who are not affiliating directly with the church, but who still believe in a higher power and are willing to talk with them, to try and talk with them, to pray and to try and form a relationship with that higher power. And so they're turning towards technology in some ways to kind of fill that gap. And so while a lot of people may think something like mindfulness meditation is just because of stress and anxiety and mental health crises, I really think it points more to the spiritual hunger we are all born with of being drawn towards the one who created us.
Eric, it makes me think of, growing up personally as a person in the church. As I got older, it was hard to keep up with. You have this Bible, this book that you are supposed to read and meditate over every day. Talk about how your app kind of helps fill that void of forgetfulness, because I think it's not that people, especially people that are born into different religions, Christianity, Catholicism, it's not that they don't want to practice, but sometimes it's almost like you forget. You're not reminded of it to pick this thing up every single day.
That's right. Yeah. And so apps like Hallow have all the conveniences that we've come to expect with technology these days, right? You can program directly in, here's the kind of prayer that I want to do at this specific point in time on this specific subject. We've got over 30,000 prayers in the app, right? You can choose things like your length and your narrator and the actual time that you want to do it. So you can totally tailor it towards the time that you have and towards where you are. You can use it on the go if you're using it while you're commuting. Some people use it during chores. Some people will use it before they pray at night. And we build in there, notifications and things that can totally adjust to your schedule. And so in that way, it can help put it front and center towards the times where you have the availability. But our hope is that it won't stop there. And once you start spending more time with the Lord, you'll end up prioritizing it a little bit more in your day-to-day life. We'll ultimately end up returning back to the church and spending a lot more time trying to grow in relationship with Him. But it's nice to have this quick hook with the technology that we have now, because you can set up those kinds of notifications and you can totally customize it to the time that you have and cater it towards your own schedule.
I want to talk to you about the demographics, because I think of my own spiritual journey, and I think of my church where they actually have now a service that starts later on Sunday, hoping that it will draw, more young people, versus some young people don't want to wake up on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. And that service is overwhelmed with young people. In terms of demographics, who are you seeing as people that are downloading your app? Is it the younger generation? Are there people right in the middle? Who's downloading Hallow?
Yeah, we've been pleasantly surprised to see that it's almost exactly evenly split if you split into kind of like 4 major age segments, like up through 25 and then 25 to mid 30s to early 50s, and then 50s and above were pretty much evenly split across the board there. But what we've ended up finding is that people in those segments are kind of drawn for sometimes different reasons. Whether sometimes on the younger for the younger population, they are finding that it's a little bit easier and more customizable for their own schedule. They are used to technology solving their problems. They have a lot of apps already. Meanwhile, a lot of the users we have on the older age groups already have a regular church that they attend, and they're looking for a way to supplement their prayer life. But either way, we've ended up seeing Hallow draw people from all across the board.
What do you think about people? I think, there's been this shift where, because AI is still relatively new, you have some people that are right in the middle, like, okay, I occasionally use it here and there. You have some other people that are like, absolutely not. And then you have another group that are like, yes, at all costs, I'm going to use it. Do you think this is beneficial, having AI-powered chatbots that are there for religious purposes?
It's a tricky question because it's a very nuanced answer, I would say. It can get pretty philosophical, but to keep it at a high level, the way that we think about it is kind of that, our dignity as human beings really comes from two places. One is that we're born with it because we were created in the image and likeness of God, right? We can see that right in the Bible. But then we can also choose to live into it when we choose to mirror some godlike qualities in a way, right? For lack of a better way of saying it. So when you think about qualities that God exemplifies, things like creativity and love and discernment come to mind, right? And rationality, reason. And so when we do exercise qualities like that, then we can further kind of live into our humanity. And so the way that I think about using AI within the context of religion is it's good to use AI to kind of reduce some of the more mundane, repetitive things that we do on a regular basis, as long as it is to free up our time to use to spend more of it using that in that dignifying way, right? To use those dignifying qualities so that we can become more creative and more discerning. If we ever get to the point where we're using AI to kind of outsource that kind of creative and rational work, well, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, and then we've taken it too far. And so as far as how we think about using it internally at Hallow, that's kind of the guiding principle that we use, and we look a lot to the church and to Pope Leo because he spent a lot of time thinking about this as well. And then, meanwhile, just to touch on some of the apps out there as well, as far as it can never actually replace a human relationship, and of course, let alone God Himself, right? And so it is certainly a dangerous tool when you start thinking about it in that way and portraying it as something that it is not, because in the end, it is really only a tool. It does not have a consciousness. It is in no way deified, and so when we use it as a way to help us increase the amount of time that we can spend doing dignifying work, and even for something like a more powerful search engine to help us find, scripture passages or point us to writings by the saints or papal encyclicals, things like that, it can be very powerful, but we just have to know when it is appropriate and not to use it.
Very good points there. I do want to ask you about this because today is the first day of Advent. For those who may not be Christian, they may not understand, but it's a tradition during this time of waiting and preparation for the celebration of the birth of Jesus at Christmas. So I know you have an Advent challenge that is going on there. Can you explain what Hallow is doing?
Absolutely, yeah. Today is the first day of the challenge. It's the biggest one we've ever done. We've already got over 500,000 people joined and praying in the app today. We're inviting people to join us in prayer for the 25 days leading up to Christmas. And the theme this year is Be Still, which comes from Psalm 46, Be still and know that I am God. And it is all about how we can take a step back from the busyness and the hectic life that we have, especially around the time of the holidays, and we focus on spending some time in silence with God and focusing on growing in relationship with Him. And we've got a truly special lineup this year too. We've got Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus in the show The Chosen. He's going to be leading the challenge, and he's joined by Chris Pratt and Gwen Stefani, Mario Lopez, and a couple of terrific nuns and priests along the way, like Father John Burns and Sister Miriam, and an incredible Byzantine nun, Mother Natalia, who will each be kind of splitting up the days and leading us through different reflections on this theme of Be Still.
You mentioned, and I want to make sure I heard you right, you said that 1 million people have signed up for this challenge already?
We've got 500,000 signed up today now. We're hoping to hit 1 million, and it's going to be, has already been the biggest challenge we've done for Advent so far.
How many people have actually downloaded your app to date?
We're just about crossing the 30 million download point now.
Congratulations, that's a big deal.
It's been a true blessing. God has been too good for sure.
God is good all the time. God is good. All right, Eric Karakas, it has been a pleasure. Are you located in the Chicago area?
I am in Chicago. Yep, I'm in my apartment right now in Lakeview, and we have our headquarters of Hallow is actually right here as well. Both my co-founders are in the area as well.
Even better to have someone local on. Well, we appreciate your time. God bless you for the work that you're doing. I'm sure it's not easy work. And thank you so much for taking some time out for us to talk about religion, to talk about Christianity, Catholicism, and all things God with us here on Chicago Live. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much. God bless.
All right. Make sure you guys go download that app. It is in the Google Play Store and also Apple Play as well. I hope I got those right. All right. Well, coming up, we got to talk about weather. If you're watching us right now and maybe you're on the clock, you're at work, you may have to deal with a little snow coming your way. We're going to have Emily Walls, the chief meteorologist here at Fox 32, break it all down right after this break. To Chicago Live. Look at that snow cover out there. Yeah, that's not stopping folks from being at the Bean, though. It never does. But here's my question for you, Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls. Will it stop people from getting home quickly during the rush hour?
Yes, it's not going to stop you from getting home later on this afternoon and evening, but it is going to stop you from getting there quickly. So right now we're starting to see, if you were to pull up your radar right now, you're going to see that it looks like snow is overspreading the area, and you'd look outside and you'd say, okay, it's not snowing yet.
Right.
So we still have dry air that's overhead, so we have to overcome that in the next hour or so. We have our winter weather advisory that is remaining in effect from 3 until, actually it's already in effect and started at 1 p.m., lasting until 1 a.m. for a lot of us. But you can see here, we're starting to see a little bit of snow coming down. Not too heavy, visibility is still looking pretty good, but we will see these snow rates ramping up. Downtown Chicago, looking over Navy Pier, still doing okay. You know, we've got the cloud cover, but we're really not seeing much more than a couple flurries here or there. But over the next few hours, those snow rates here, they're going to be ramping up. A lot of us are going to end up in that 2 to 4 inch range. And then the farther south that you are, so for those of you that are near south of I-80, for those of you in Northwest Indiana, you have a better chance of being closer to 3-4 inches. So you're going to be at the higher end of that range. You can handle it, Tia. You're ready for it. But, you know, after coming off of a historic snowstorm that we had over the weekend, you know, this is kind of a double whammy, but you know, after talking to so many people with the snow that came through this past weekend, at least for those that were not traveling and weren't really impacted on that aspect from the snow, I think a lot of people were really excited about it. This was one of the bigger snowstorms that we've had in several years. Last year, throughout the entire season, we only saw, I think, about 11 inches total. So, you know, this was a good snowstorm that we just had. And in the coming days, you were just seeing the 7-day there. We have cooling conditions. We're going to be kind of back and forth between the 20s, the 30s. We have several snow chances throughout the week, but today's the main one when it comes to accumulation. Again, 2 to 4 inches for a lot of us. High temperatures, we're already about there, close to the low 30s. Tomorrow we're in the upper 20s. Dry skies on Tuesday. But then on Wednesday, while we briefly warm up, warmer than the freezing mark. This is going to be key, everybody. There are a lot of sidewalks, driveways that I've seen that are still really packed with slush and ice.
Yes.
Get rid of that on Wednesday, because those overnight low temperatures Wednesday night into Thursday, we're going down into the single digits. We have highs that are only in the teens, and with those really cold overnight lows, that ice is not going to go anywhere.
Black ice,
Yes, so try to get rid of that on Wednesday when we have some melting taking place. But otherwise, a very winter-like week.
You know, it was interesting when that snowstorm hit. It was interesting because, you know, I don't recall staying in the house that much for that long and not really having any places to really go in a while. So it was different to be like, oh, I got to live here and I got to deal with, you know, I got to deal with whatever's going on with my kid. It's not really many places we could go, except for we did try to build a snowman. She kicked it down. But that's neither here nor there. It seems like we're here. So we got to get used to it.
Well, and today is December 1st. It's the very beginning of meteorological winter. So we have arrived. We are here.
You're so excited about this.
Well, there's two different camps, right? So there's half of the people that were traveling over the Thanksgiving holiday. So they're done with it. This was a nightmare of a situation for folks that were traveling. But for folks that were staying put, you know, it's kind of nice to be trapped indoors for a couple days. I didn't mind.
Yeah, it made you rethink everything. Slow down, have the time to think, you know, maybe check Santa's list a couple of times. Okay, so after this week, I know you can't tell us about next week, but is anything in this forecast that we're seeing so far, is anything about that a record? Like that low that you mentioned, is that a record on Thursday for it to be 18 for the high?
You know, we're likely going to be pretty close to records. I would have to look specifically on Thursday, and to be honest with you, Tia, I haven't looked at the exact records for Thursday.
I know, you just walked in here.
I just walked in the door here. But what I can say is that Thursday, you know, when we wake up in the morning and we're going to have those low temperatures in the single digits, that's bad enough. That's very cold.
Yes.
But it's also going to be windy because we're on the backside of a cold front. So wind chill temperatures Thursday morning are likely going to come very, very close to the criteria needed for a cold weather advisory, which is minus 20-degree wind chills. So that's potentially what we could be waking up to on Thursday. And, you know, whenever we're in that range, you know, that's when schools actually start considering
closing.
Closing, or do we have an e-learning day? So I think on Thursday, you know, we could potentially be seeing some of that depending on how high those winds are.
I want to go back to today. How long is that snow supposed to last in our area?
So most areas it's going to be tapering off after about 10, 11 p.m. or so. So it's not even going to last all night. Crews are going to have plenty of time to clear off those roads for your Tuesday morning commute. It's the Monday afternoon and evening commute. So I know things are fine for a lot of us right now, but in the coming hours, certainly rush hours by 5, 6, 7 p.m. for a lot of folks, we're going to be dealing with snow on the road, and temperatures are cold enough that anything we pick up, it's going to stick if it's untreated. So any untreated surfaces, if the salt isn't down, it's going to be a sheet of ice.
So you were saying people need to get out there and do those sidewalks, those driveways, those common areas now.
Now, and then you're likely going to have to do it again. But Wednesday is going to be the key day for that, because Wednesday is when we could actually be rising above the freezing mark. So we have that moving in our favor, right? But then after Wednesday, whatever we don't clear, it's going to be stuck for days.
You know what I hate the most, honestly? Maybe hate is extreme. I don't really hate anything. But one thing that I really don't like is after a while, right, the snow has been on the ground for a while, the cars have come by, maybe your dog, and after a while, the snow is like so gross looking.
Yeah, well, you know, the fresh layer that we're going to have today is going to give us that glow that we felt a few days ago.
All right, Emily Walls, always bringing the sunshine, no matter what it looks like outside. No, truly.
I'm
you
trying,
are a ray of
but
sunshine.
I am very excited about winter. It's my favorite season to work.
Is it?
As a meteorologist, it's my favorite forecasting to do. I have the most fun working in the winter.
When were you born? What
September.
month? Okay. All right. So easing kind of in that direction.
Personal Emily, I love, give me summer though. But
summer.
Work Emily, I love
summer.
winter.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Work Emily loves summer. Well, work Emily loves winter.
Yes.
Seasonally speaking, in your birthday, overall you like summer.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Check that off my list. All right. Well, stay with us right here on Chicago Live. Thank you, Emily. It has always, I can't even say it's been a pleasure this time. It's always a pleasure. You're always smiling no matter the circumstances. I appreciate that. Look what's, I thought that was a salt truck coming down the road. It's a garbage truck.
It's a garbage truck.
Yep, I'm wrong. We'll be right back. On your Monday afternoon, you are watching Chicago Live, and just to reset here, I am your host for this hour, Tia Ewing. We want to talk about Luigi Mangione, and that name may sound very familiar to you because that is the man charged with murdering UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He is in court today for a pretrial hearing. In fact, these hearings are expected to last for several days, and joining us live from the courthouse is Fox's Caroline Elliott. Caroline, thank you so much for your time today. I want to talk about first what we are expecting to come out of these hearings.
Yeah, Tia. Well, by the end of this week, the defense, we should say, should have a better idea of what they're up against exactly. His lawyers are saying that key evidence needs to be thrown out. That's what they want the judge to do, because they say that Luigi Mangione was not read his Miranda rights when he was first arrested. And they're also claiming officers did not have a warrant to search his backpack. And they say police body cam video proves exactly that. So now Mangione's lawyers want the judge to throw out this evidence that police found in that backpack, including a 3D printed gun, a silencer, Mangione's phone, and a red notebook that's been described as a manifesto. Legal experts say even though it's not clear how the judge will rule, prosecutors still have a lot more evidence to work with.
Any idea, Caroline, if there's any video for any of this? Any idea if there's any video for any of this? You know, oftentimes when a suspect that was widely sought after, like Mangione, there's body cameras that are rolling as this person is taken into custody. Any idea if any videos will be played in court during these hearings?
Yeah, the defense is looking closer at body cam video of that arrest. They say during that body cam video, it shows that Luigi Mangione was not read his Miranda rights, and that's something that they're really arguing the reason why the judge should throw this out. Again, unclear what could happen, but legal experts are saying that if it is thrown out, prosecutors still have a lot of evidence to work with, Tia.
Yeah, you know, there were supposed to be some protesters outside of that courthouse in New York City today. Have you seen a gathering of any kind of protesters out there?
Yes, Tia, we have seen a couple protesters out here throughout the day. And what's different about this case, Tia, is just how much attention the suspect in this case has gotten on social media, in front of the courthouse, any kind of appearance he's made in the last year since his arrest. There's been some kind of crowd or protesters showing up, or not protesters, we should say supporters showing up to support him in this case. So that's been a very interesting part of this case. Certainly not something you see in every murder case, but we have seen a couple of them out here today, Tia.
Can you talk about the witnesses in all of this? Because I know there was a sticking point among the attorneys about the relevance of the witness and witnesses that will come into play in this trial. And that was from Mangione's attorneys.
Yes, we do know that both prosecutors and the defense, they're wanting to call a number of witnesses, people who were there obviously during the arrest, and then also the investigators who were there after. So we'll have to see who is allowed, who's not. Again, we should have a better idea of that by the end of the week. But again, getting through this witness list could take several days, Tia.
Elliott, as always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us a little time to talk about such a huge case that's happening in New York City today. And those hearings, again, expected to last several days. Thank you for your time. We want to go now to the Senate floor, where we know Illinois Senator Dick Durbin is speaking right now, and we want to listen in.
Keep fighting to lower costs for the American people. Madam President, we know that there's an opportunity that's going to come before the Senate in just a few days to do something about the high cost of health insurance premiums. I'm hearing it back home. People understand what's happening. They're getting notices about what these premiums are going to be as of the first of the year. Some 24 million Americans are affected by the big, beautiful budget bill of Donald Trump and the elimination of these tax credits. It's time for us to do something for American families that makes a difference. Help them pay their health insurance. For goodness sakes, that should be a high priority, not only for the Senate, because it's a high priority for every family. I hope that we can work on a bipartisan basis to extend these tax credits and to make sure that the American people understand both Democrats and Republicans can work together to solve this problem. I think some want to on the other side of the aisle. We should do that in a spirit of bipartisanship. The last point I want to make, Madam President, is almost impossible to understand or explain. Can you imagine that the former president of Honduras, his name is Juan Orlando Hernandez, was prosecuted by the federal government of the United States for his involvement in the trade in narcotics. He was found guilty of having been involved in and sentenced to some 45 years in prison as a result. He once boasted as president that he would stuff the drugs up the gringos' noses. He accepted $1 million bribe from El Chapo, one of the leaders in Narcotics International, to allow cocaine shipments to pass through Honduras destined for the United States. This former President Hernandez had a man killed in prison to protect him. Honduras has become a bastion of the global drug trade. This former President Hernandez orchestrated a vast trafficking conspiracy that prosecutors said raked in millions of dollars for cartels while keeping Honduras, while making Honduras one of Central America's poorest, most violent, and most corrupt countries. So they prosecute him, find him guilty of selling narcotics through these cartels in the United States. Can you think of anyone more reprehensible than that? Selling drugs to this country, finding more victims by the day, many of them children who become addicted to cocaine. Well, of course it's terrible. It's so terrible that he was found guilty and sentenced to 45 years in prison. Then what happened? Well, you won't believe it. Donald Trump pulls out his pardon pen. On Saturday, Mr. Trump said in a statement to the New York Times that, quote, many friends have asked him to pardon Mr. Hernandez. They gave him 45 years because he was president of the country. And then Donald Trump said, you could do this to any president. I won't go into President Trump's own criminal convictions, but I will tell you this. When this man who was president of Honduras was facilitating the sale of narcotics in America, we thought so much of the effort to prosecute him that we assigned an assistant U.S. attorney by the name of Emil Bove. Ring a bell? Emil Bove was chosen by President Trump to serve on the Circuit Court of the United States. He was approved by this chamber. I was at the hearing where he was considered. And I will tell you this, he was proud of the fact that he was tough on crime, so tough that he helped to prosecute Hernandez and ended up seeing him sent to jail for so many years. Then along comes President Trump with his pardon pen and releases Hernandez from jail. Releases him. After years and years of prosecution, evidence, and hard work, stopping this man who was facilitating the sale of narcotics in the United States, once he started serving the prison sentence, President Trump said, and I quote, many friends had asked him to pardon Mr. Hernandez. They gave him 45 years, President Trump said, because he was the president of the country. You could do this to any president, and he then pardoned him. Hard to imagine, isn't it? But it isn't hard to imagine if you were here on January 7th and saw the insurrectionists come roaring through this Capitol, storm this chamber, and drive the Senate into recess as we went to an adjoining building so that law enforcement could take over the situation. 149 law enforcement officers were seriously injured and several died as a result of that experience. It was a terrible day in the history of the United States, a terrible day in the history of this magnificent building that we're honored to serve in. What did Donald Trump do as soon as he was reelected president? He issued a full and unconditional pardon to all of the people who stormed the Capitol. So it comes as no surprise that when it comes to drug kingpins, like the former Honduran president, Mr. Hernandez, he got his pardon pen again and decided, because he'd heard from so many friends, the president said, he decided to pardon this man and release him. This is not an action by a president who's trying to keep America safe from narcotics. It is a strange understanding of his power that he would use this and not end up penalizing those who are responsible for the narcotics coming into the United States. Madam President, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
The senator from West Virginia.
Madam President, I rise today with a very heavy heart, one shared by all West Virginians and by so many across our country, including you, Madam President. This past Wednesday, 2 members of the West Virginia National Guard were targeted and shot in the line of duty right here in Washington, D.C. In the days since this horrific attack, our entire state has been praying.
So we just listened to Senator Dick Durbin there on the Senate floor going against some of what President Donald Trump has done since he's been in office. I do want to point out the fact that today, Senator Durbin, along with Tammy Duckworth and also U.S. Senator, I should say Delia Ramirez, they did introduce today the Service Member Student Loan Affordability Act. And just to give you some notes on this legislation aims to allow military personnel to consolidate or refinance their student loans while also maintaining a capped interest rate of 6%. That is not something that the senator just spoke about, but they did just introduce that today. So I wanted to point that out to our viewing audience. We have a whole lot more coming up on Chicago Live as we get closer and closer to nearing that 4 o'clock mark. We're going to talk about Christkindlmarket. There's a new capacity limit placed on the market. We're going to talk all about it right after this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. I want to talk about the Christkindlmarket because this is really interesting and it has a lot of people asking a lot of questions. New capacity restrictions at the market will make lines at the very popular holiday destination even longer. So this was recently implemented by the city. The capacity limited now to 1,553 visitors at a time. And joining us to talk about this is Mark Tompkins, the CEO and president of GACC Midwest. That stands for the German American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Oh, thanks for welcoming us in.
Why the capacity limit? How did we arrive here? We know that it's popular. We know that people come, thousands of people come on a daily basis. This isn't anything new. Why the capacity limit this time around?
Well, we were shocked by it too. Literally hours before we were set to open to the public, we got a hard capacity limit of the 1,500. The good news is, as of today, we can let 1,000 more people onto the plaza, so 2,500 onto the plaza. But like I said, even during COVID was the only other time we've had a hard capacity limit.
communicated to us, and that was 3,494 back in COVID when we had social distancing.
Yeah, back in 2021. Tell me, so 2,500, you're still not capped as high as you were in 2021. What does that 2,500 capacity limit do? How does that trickle down to some of your vendors that you have there?
That's exactly the right point. We're 40% below what we were at during COVID. So for our vendors, that means they're fighting for survival. Many of them, or basically all of them, have had to let temp staff go. They're workers here for the holidays, the seasonal workers who now are undoubtedly looking for other seasonal work, trying to find out, where they can get a little extra money for the holidays. So it has a very real impact on everyday Chicagoans that help us put on this market.
I know you had a meeting with the city today. Before that meeting, the capacity was at 1,553. Now it's at 2,500. Did you go back and forth with the city on this to increase that? And what was the city's reasoning for limiting capacity?
Well, we've had conversations with the city ever since this came down, literally right before our opening. And I want to thank the city for having that dialogue. And we're appreciative that we now have an increased capacity, but it's a long way from allowing our vendors to really survive and thrive. And a lot of them are questioning what this means, if they can even come back next year at all.
Talk about, because one of the headlines of this story has been that because of that capacity limit, it meant the line down LaSalle was even longer. Will that still be the case? And what does that mean? Are you worried that people will say, you know what, I'm looking at this line, it's too long, and that's a deterrent? That means that people may say, I'm not even going to stand in line. I'll go somewhere else.
Right. That's a big issue, right? If it's wrapped around the building, you're making that question, do I even get in line? The bigger question is that may mean people aren't coming downtown to visit, State Street or the Mag Mile. So it has a big effect, not just on our vendors, it has an effect on, the whole downtown business district and restaurants and other retail. There are enough other places people can go shopping, but we want to bring those people downtown to Chicago to enjoy the city too.
This isn't your only site for Christkindlmarket. There are other sites, 2 other, I believe, sites that you have. Are you having issues at those locations as well in terms of having this mass droves of people showing up?
The good news, out in Aurora, we have plenty of space. So that's a great solution for anybody who wants to make the trip to Aurora. We have plenty of space at River Edge Park there. And Wrigleyville, it's a much, much smaller market, but thankfully they have the infrastructure to handle really big crowds for baseball games. So Wrigley's been a great partner there too.
I want to ask you, in terms of time, right? Because maybe people will, and maybe people have seen where the line is long now, and maybe they're contemplating standing in that line. Are there times that you would tell people, this is a better time to come if you don't want to have to stand in this line now because of this imposed capacity limit?
Well, today's a great day to come downtown because right after, the Thanksgiving holiday, historically, the Monday after Thanksgiving is our lightest day of the whole year, but certainly Mondays, Tuesdays, early in the week are always better times. And a credit to Chicagoans, we had a line even on Saturday in the middle of the snowstorm. So find those maybe weather days where it's a little bit colder, as you mentioned in the weather, that it's going to get a little colder this coming week. Come out, enjoy the glühwein, and you'll have a lot less people in line.
I want to ask you, so this all started in 1997 at Daly Plaza specifically. How many people have you seen, for example, at that particular location over the years?
Yeah, and we've put out numbers in the past. Typically an annual attendance is somewhere in the $1.2 million visitor range. So very strong attendance. We draw hundreds of thousands of people into downtown Chicago and have a huge economic impact for the city, over $190 million every year in terms of that economic impact. So we're hoping with this, adjustment that we have a chance at least of having some nice fraction of that. But again, that's 40% below COVID levels, and COVID levels were already down from traditional years.
Mr. Tompkins, I want to ask you, when it comes to this capacity level, was this an issue for the city of saying, If someone passes out, we would have an issue getting to them. If there were a fire, we hope there's never a fire, we would have an issue getting a fire crew in there. What was their rationale for even imposing this to begin with?
Yeah, the rationale really went to interpretation of Chicago City Code. It's based on the same IBC code that is in place for other cities around the world. So for us, it's been a completely new interpretation of what that would be. And I really want to credit Chicago Police Department, Chicago Fire Department, that whenever we have had something go on at the market, mind you, we've been Daily Plaza now for 28 years, 29 years here in Chicago, and we've never had, thank goodness, serious safety conditions, that when things have happened at the market, we have EMTs on site 100% of the time. Chicago Police Department is there. Chicago Fire Department, it has quick access. So thankfully, even at our peak times, we've been able to manage whatever small emergencies have arisen.
I want to give you a
over
little...
29 years, things happen, but
Yeah.
It's thankfully been a very safe place. And I will say, when other things have happened downtown, people look at the Christkindlmarket as a safe place to go. So that even as things are happening elsewhere, people come towards us to seek safety at the plaza.
I want to ask you, maybe someone's out there, I've heard about Christkindlmarket. I can't even tell you how long, I think since its inception. I want to ask you, maybe somebody's out there right now, they will see this video, it will live online, and they're like, you know what, I want to go check it out. What do they have to offer? Can you run down the list of all the different vendors that you have
so
out there?
much. I mean,
maybe not all of them, but give us a partial list.
Yeah, and the market is all about authenticity, right? So you have your traditional German holiday gifts. You have the ornaments, hand-painted ornaments, from the Erzgebirge in Germany, all the little gifts and toys. So you have those gifts, but then you also have the authentic food. You have the bratwurst, not just regular bratwurst. You have Nürnberger, straight from Nuremberg, where we have the Christkindlmarket, or the Christkindlesmarkt in Nuremberg, going back to, I think, 1530. So you have really that authentic traditional things. And then you have Chicago favorites. We have so many of our vendors that are local to Chicago, and this is kind of their outpost for the winter, where they come down and join us at the market and maybe get a few more people interested in their store, like the Chicago Tea House or Dönerman with their D-Men Tap up on the north side. So it's a mix of classic Chicago and then all those wonderful German things. And I can't forget the roasted nuts, because you smell those from outside already, and everybody runs inside and wants to get the roasted nuts too.
I must ask you, what is your favorite food at the market?
Ooh, that's really hard. I'll tell you what I had for lunch today was the goulash from the Schnitzel House. If you haven't tried that goulash, it's probably different than most of the goulash you've had. Fantastic. But I love the Nürnberger. I love the raclette cheese baguette. I mean, there's so many good things.
You got me hungry. I haven't had lunch today. All right, I want to ask you one final question before we let you go. Actually, two. I have two questions for you. One question is this it in terms of having this discussion with the city to increase capacity? Is that it? Is that the best they can do at 2,500, or will there be continued talks until the market comes back again next year?
Thanks for the question. We're still talking with them for this year. What can we do to save our vendors? And that's really the point about all this, because while people might enjoy having a less crowded plaza, if it stays the way it is right now, our vendors aren't going to be able to make it back next year, so it doesn't really matter. And then the plaza will be completely empty. So our goal is to find a solution for this year that works, and then put all the options on the table for next year to get to something so that we can celebrate a 30th anniversary the way it should be celebrated, with the Christkindlmarket everybody knows and loves.
So because of this capacity limit, I know it was raised today, but because of the one that had already been put in place, was it that the vendors are seeing less customers come and stand before them? Is that the issue? Because I know this is the second time you've said, this is going to cause a real issue for our vendors moving forward.
Yeah, you look at it, vendors now, depending on who they are, they're down 30 to 70% on sales over the first, 11 days of the market. That hurts. That's not a business case that is survivable. Look at any business. If a retailer dropped 30% of their sales in 1 year, and many of them are much higher than that, they'd be out of business. So that, and then it hits their employees that aren't getting paychecks, because if you have, up till now, just a tiny fraction of the capacity of what's normally been on the plaza, you don't need as many people taking care of those customers either.
And so, just so I'm clear, is the issue then the line that backs up? And then what do you do? Because I'm just asking this question. I don't have the answer. But what do you do if you have all of these people now on the inside of the market? You have this line going down the street, and those people want to get into the market. Are there time limits inside? Like where are we with this? Because that is concerning when you say a 30% to 70% drop on sales. That's huge.
Absolutely. And it's a matter of life and death for our small businesses. So when you talk about the lines outside, at points we've had a much more people waiting outside the market than actually inside the market. And it's frustrating for them to see all this open space that, well, hey, I'll fit in there just fine. I know historically we've had issues with crowding. It's a, kind of a sad thing. We're so popular and people love coming down, that we've had too much for a crowd sometime, and now we're completely the opposite right now, where the level of crowds aren't sustainable. So, but my faith in Chicagoans, they're willing to brave a little bit of cold and a little bit of line to get their Glühwein. But the real plea is, we had a snowstorm on Small Business Saturday. Our vendors need the help, so those who do come, please support those vendors. Please, buy your gifts at the market, buy your gifts at our downtown location, that when you do get in, you're supporting those vendors, because that's going to matter in terms of them surviving this cut this year.
Have you thought about, and I'm just thinking from a business standpoint, I have no idea, what the limits would be on this, of being able to even accommodate this. This seems like this would be a question you would have to have, a conversation with the city too. But I think about, I looked at the 7-day forecast that our meteorologist had up right before we came to talk to you, Mark. And one thing I thought about was, when I knew we were going to do this story, I was thinking of maybe like a warming tent or something like that. Has there been any conversation about that would at least keep the crowd there so they can then go into the market?
Oh, you're talking about a warming tent outside of the market. We do have space on the weekends on Washington. Washington's closed for that 1 block stretch on the weekends. We haven't gotten to the point yet for a warming tent, but maybe that's something to look at. Like I said, every option's on the table for what we can look at to make this work. In the end, it's also about having people on the plaza actively supporting our vendors, having a good time, quite frankly, enjoying the market experience. And if we stay where we're at right now, that doesn't look good for a lot of our vendors.
I'm just trying to understand, and maybe I won't understand. Maybe we'll both walk away from this not fully getting it. I just don't get why now. If we were last here in 2021 with actual restrictions of how close you could be to someone, this is nothing new. The Christkindlmarket is it gets crowded. That's nothing new because of its popularity. I'm just curious, why now? Why the city chose now? Did you feel like you got an answer to that question in those conversations?
We were just as shocked. Why now? And we've had conversations for years around crowd management and absolutely keeping the plaza safe. And like I said, the Chicago Police Department on site have always worked with us well to manage that, to manage the crowds. And so we were just shocked by this new capacity limit again, hours before we opened. Our vendors didn't have time. Their wares are all here. All their giftware is here. They paid the tariffs on it already, got it in the country from Germany and wherever else it came from. So they had no time to adjust.
Right.
They're sitting on inventory right now.
So they've already spent the money and hoping to make the money back, and it's nothing they can do at this point but hope that more people would be able to stand before them. Before I let you go, Mark, can you tell us the times, the days that the market is open? Maybe someone doesn't want to come on, a Saturday where it's typically busy. Can you give us some of the other options out there?
Yeah, throughout the week, we're open every day at Daily Plaza until Christmas Eve. So come on out and we're open every single day, generally at 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then there's a few special hours like on Christmas Eve. Always check the website also with whatever's happening on the weather. But we're open every single day until Christmas Eve. And the shorter wait times, the less lines are going to be those Mondays, Tuesdays, especially early in the month. So come out soon. I'm sure that last week right before Christmas is going to be very busy with very long lines because we have our capacity limits on the plaza, and we're going to work with the city to figure out what we can do there. We're still looking at every option on how we can adjust capacity.
It sounds like it's not over. All right, Mark Tompkins, thank you so much for coming on with us today. Anyone watching right now, you can go to the website. Again, he mentioned it. It is ChristKindleMarket.com. We'll stay with us right here on Chicago Live. We have a whole lot more show for you, a little less than 30 minutes on the other side of this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. It is that time of year, 24 days until Christmas. Santa is getting the presents all ready for all the kids up under the tree. And right now, a tree lighting ceremony is underway. This one is taking place. We're taking a live look at this. It's a little spotty, so we're going to try to stick with it for a little bit. But this is the Cook County Board President, Tony Preckwinkle. They are lighting the Christmas tree over at the county building. This is at 118 North Clark Street, right in the lobby there, where you can kind of see the tree in the background there. They are getting that Christmas tree lighting underway. So yeah, it is that time of year. And is that former mayor, who is that to her right? Is that Daley? That's one of the Daleys there. I knew that face looked familiar. Obviously a huge part of Chicago politics, the Daley family. So yes, you're seeing that Christmas tree lighting there at the Cook County building getting underway. If you want to see it in person, close up, that's at 118 North Clark Street. Do we want to take a look at the markets real quick before we go to break? So you're looking at the markets right now, down 427. It was a really interesting start to December. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down, you see it right there, 0.9%. S&P 500 fell to 0.5%, and the NASDAQ composite dropped to 0.4%. So not the way that you traditionally want to start the month, but hopefully it gets better as we move throughout the week and throughout the month of December. Well, stay with us right here on Chicago Live. We're going to take you over to one of the airports. We know it has been a really rough day for a lot of folks trying to travel on back home. We're going to touch base with our reporter who's been on the ground there since her shift began, Casey Cronus, monitoring all things airlines right after this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. You see that traffic has picked up out there, and you see a little bit of snowfall as well. Some of that is people, leaving from work, trying to make it home, but a lot of people are heading back home after the holidays. And we know over the weekend we were slammed with a crazy snowstorm here, and the airlines apparently are still trying to catch up, and now more snow is on the way. That is where we find our very own Casey Cronus in the midst of it all, right in the thick of it at O'Hare International Airport. Casey, I see a lot of people behind you, a lot of people trying to make it back home. Tell me, what are some of the stories that you've heard from people? Because we know there's been a decent amount of cancellations over at O'Hare.
Oh, Tia, people are just keeping their fingers crossed as they enter through these doors here in Terminal 1. We can see outside, and it looks like a mess. The roads here are just super wet, and the snow is coming down as people are getting dropped off and really not knowing if they're going to even make it out tonight, because we are just about to hit 200 cancellations in or out of O'Hare for the day. This, of course, doesn't compare to Saturday when there were more than 1,200 cancellations during that winter storm, but still, this is impacting a lot of people today. And not only 250 cancellations here at O'Hare, but we've just hit 800 delays. And these numbers we are expecting are only going to tick upward. Now, we've heard from several passengers today. One man we talked to, and you'll hear from him when you tune in again at 4 o'clock to our newscast. But he is from Virginia. He's traveling to Fargo, North Dakota. He's been stuck here at the airport for more than 24 hours. This was supposed to be a connecting flight. Turns out that was canceled. So he spent the night at the Hilton, checked out. This morning's flight got canceled again, so now he's heading on back over to the Hilton, and fingers crossed, there is still a room for him.
Yeah, and hopefully, a lot of people may be in that situation. They may not even have the money, to pay for an airport or pay for a hotel 2 days in a row. What are the airlines saying during all of this?
And that is exactly right. I asked him, who's paying for that hotel room? And he said it's coming out of his own pocket. I think he said $178 a night. And as you mentioned, a lot of people cannot afford that. He even mentioned room service is so expensive at the hotel that he tried to DoorDash something. That took over an hour. So he came back to the airport, and he was actually going to go through security to get some food here at the airport because he's without a car, isn't from the area, doesn't want to venture out. And Ubers, of course, are also expensive. So these are all added expenses that people are incurring. Now, a lot of airlines are giving vouchers for flight cancellations, things like that. But of course, weather is not something that they can control. Over the weekend, United did provide a waiver, but those were only valuable for days that you were traveling through yesterday. So unless they issue a new waiver for people who had flights through yesterday, they can go to United and search that and figure out how to change their flights without penalty here. But a lot of people are going to be out of a lot of money here.
No, very good point. During that winter storm, some people were trying to get groceries. Some people got stuck and thought they could Uber or, get a ride through Lyft to try to get where they needed to go. And no, they were not successful. A lot of drivers that typically are out there were not moving around during that storm. Any other highlights from your story tonight at 4 that we need to look out for, Casey?
A couple of other things. Even if people do make it on their plane, they have to hope that they actually take off on time or get out at all. We've heard from people who yesterday were on their plane for 2 hours while the plane was being de-iced. Luckily, they did not have to get off and get on another plane. Their plane did end up making it out, but you're talking a lot of waiting, so people really need to pack their patience, as we like to say. If you are heading to the airport tonight, or if you're already here stuck inside, we did talk to several people who had a really good outlook on it and said, I'm going to catch up on emails, catch up on phone calls. Not anything I can control here.
Any advice that you would give based on anything that you've heard today that may be helpful? Here we are through Thanksgiving, but there are people that will be traveling through Christmas as well. We don't know what the weather may be around that time. Any advice based on what you've heard so far that you would give to somebody who will be traveling during the holidays?
Two websites that you'll want to keep tabs on: Fly Chicago, and that is just for Midway and O'Hare, keeps track of average delays, average wait times. For example, average delays at O'Hare right now, according to that website, are about 27 minutes. That's arrivals and departures, but that'll kind of give you a better idea of how long you might be delayed, even if it says your flight is on time. Another website, Flight Aware, and we have been using both of these sites to track what is going on. O'Hare right now is #1 on Flight Aware's misery map, which means this tracks all of the major airports across the country. And unfortunately, O'Hare is pulling in for first place right now because of all these delays and cancellations. And of course, download the airline app specific to your airline that you are using. You're going to get notifications and alerts, as long as you turn them on, directly to your phone about your flight status, any delays. And finally, check your status before you come to the airport so that you don't make an unnecessary trip if, unfortunately, your flight does not get off the ground.
Yeah, very good advice there. And I'm looking, you just told me about one of those websites. I have it up right now. The average delay at Midway, less than 15 minutes. So yeah, definitely a website that you need to have, and that's flychicago.com. Casey, you were on top of it today, as always. Thank you so much. I don't know about you, but over the weekend, I felt like I was stuck in a snow globe. It was so much snow coming down out there.
I know it really wasn't. I tried to avoid going outside, but on Saturday, I did have plans with friends who were in from DC. And so we were out in Fulton Market, and it was a ghost town, Tia. I was actually surprised at how few people were around. It was really interesting to see it so quiet.
Yeah, I don't advise for people to go out there if they don't have to, but I did go out on Saturday to do some last minute shopping stuff I needed to do. And I said, wow, you guys opened up for me. And I said that because there was no one there but the workers.
No one.
No one.
Yep.
So good advice there.
And we found too that several places were closed because of the storm as well. So, you know, we always have to stay on our toes during these winter weather events.
Absolutely, we do. And make sure, I know I'm going to sound like a mom or even a dad, but make sure you check your tires if you're going to be traveling, your oil levels, make sure you have some gas, and also make sure those wipers are working. And don't be like my coworker. Yep. I have a coworker that sits next to me, Brad. He does not wear a coat because he goes from his garage to the parking garage here at work. And I said, well, what happens if your car breaks down? What would you have to put on in this cold weather? Nothing. So have a coat, gloves, all the things. You need them no matter where you are. Casey Cronus, always a pleasure. You're always on your A game. We appreciate you on Chicago Live.
Thank you, Tia.
All right. Thank you, Casey. Okay, stay with us. We just have 8 more minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We were just talking with Mark Tompkins a little bit earlier in the show in this 3 o'clock hour. He's the CEO and president of GACC Midwest. That's the German American Chamber of Commerce. And we were talking about the Christkindlmarket and how the city has implemented a capacity limit initially at 1,553 visitors, and they now have increased that by 1,000 after meeting with all the organizers from Christkindlmarket. That now sits at around 2,500. And he spoke about how this has impacted vendors. And in fact, we did get a statement from the city on this very issue, and I do want to read it to you, and you can kind of just read into it for yourself of what's happening here. It says the city appreciates the vendors and organizers who have made Christkindlmarket into an iconic holiday season destination for Chicagoans and tourists alike. The enormous success of Christkindlmarket has pushed the limits of the capacity thresholds for Daley Plaza. The city's top priority will remain ensuring that the event is held safely and successfully for all involved. To address the concerns raised by the organizers, the city is continuing to work with them to increase capacity in a safe and organized manner. The city will continue to work with the organizers to manage the flow of visitors so that the volume meets the needs of the vendors. CFD will offer additional training to event security so that they have adequate preparation to manage an increased flow of visitors, and we will continue to make adjustments as needed. We will continue to work with event organizers to evaluate possible alternative locations for next year. So looking into that, it sounds like there may be a strong possibility that the Christkindlmarket may have a new home in the city of Chicago starting next year, and that an alternate home will not include Daley Plaza. It sounds like it's grown so large that Daley Plaza is not a fitting place for how many people come to the Christkindlmarket in a given season. So we will see how this continues to shake out. You heard Mr. Tompkins talk about that they are not done having these meetings with the city of Chicago for this year, saying that already sales for some of their vendors are down 30% to 70%, and that many of those vendors often go outside of this country, going to actually Germany to get a lot of the goods that they sell there, and in fact, a lot of it imposed by tariffs. So they had to pay more this time, hoping that they would have the capacity there to offset the cost in which they've already paid out of pocket for. Of course, we know this announcement came literally hours before, a day before the market was to open. So not enough time for the vendors to even react. So again, if you do want to visit the Christkindlmarket, you can go to their website. It's christkindlmarket.com. Well, stay with us right here. We have a short break. We'll be right back.
From Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at 4.
Right now at 4, the Chicago Bears take over as NFC's #1 seed.
Democrats try to block a mid-decade redistricting effort in Indiana.
And Cook County has its first new chief judge in over 2 decades. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sylvia Perez.
I'm Scott Schneider in for Terrence tonight.
Weather is first at 4, and wow, what a weekend of weather. We have more on the way as another round of snow is moving into the area. What exactly are we looking at?
I think the beans back there somewhere.
Well,
you know,
oh my gosh,
we're not seeing. Oh, there we go. We can at least see something out there. Yes. So we're starting to see the snow moving into the area. We now have snow across most of the region. For those of you in Northwest Indiana, you're still fighting a little bit of dry air, but for the most part, yes, you are going to be dealing with snow and your weather alerts. We all have a winter weather advisory that's going to remain in effect through midnight for northeastern Illinois. For those of you in Northwest Indiana, this is going to remain in effect until 3 a.m. But for a lot of us, we're likely going to see the majority of the snow winding down very shortly after midnight. So it's not going to last all night long. The main concern is really for the afternoon, the evening commute. If you're going to be out and about on the roads out there this evening or tonight, we're still going to be dealing with some snow out there. But tomorrow morning, I would expect by that point, we're going to be in pretty decent shape. Now, how much are we expecting? Generally, about 1 to 4 inches, lesser amounts the farther north that you go, higher amounts the farther south, near and south of the Kankakee River Valley. That's where we're going to be seeing about 3 to 4 inches. Now, let's take it live outside to Leslie Moreno right now. You're keeping a close eye on roads. Tell us more.
Hey, Emily, good evening. Yeah, you're looking at I-94 here behind me, northbound and southbound. It's been snowing consistently for the past hour or so. I can tell you traffic is moving along. It's starting to move a bit slower, but certainly moving. Giving you a closer look here at the road conditions. Again, I-94 northbound and southbound. We're expecting 1 to 3 inches of snow for much of the area, much less snow than we saw over the weekend. But the concern here is it's coming down during rush hour, so lots of cars on the roads. That means roads are going to be slick. You can expect to see some slush, reduced visibility, some ice patches, of course, and especially on bridges and overpasses. We have seen snow plows and salt trucks out here working, but until they get through, you really do want to take it slow. The Illinois Department of Transportation is urging drivers to slow down. Make sure you're leaving plenty of space between you and the car ahead, and don't crowd the crews that are out here working. Make sure you're giving them enough room to work and get around. No accidents or major issues to report right now that we've seen. Again, just starting to move a little bit slower here as we get closer to that 5 o'clock rush hour. If you don't have to be out, again, we recommend you stay home, avoid driving in this mess. But if you do have to be out and drive, make sure you're taking it slow and driving carefully. For now, reporting live here in the Loop, Leslie Moreno, Fox 32 Chicago.
Well, the travel troubles continue. Just about 250 flights canceled at Chicago's big airport today.
That said, only one cancellation at Midway. That said, we could see more as the snow continues to fall. Casey Crone is joining us from O'Hare with the latest. Casey.
That's right, Scott and Sylvia. Those cancellations are only ticking upward. And so far here at O'Hare, there have already been, it just jumped up, 800 delays. Now, we know it is not a good sign when O'Hare is leading the way on FlightAware's misery map. Take a look. This tracks delays and cancellations at all major airports across the nation. We've heard from passengers who just yesterday were waiting for 2 hours once they boarded so crews could de-ice their plane, and others who say once they landed at O'Hare, sat with dozens of other planes for an open gate. This afternoon, we talked with one traveler from Virginia who is heading to Fargo, North Dakota for work, but has been stuck in Chicago since yesterday morning.
Our flight got delayed, and it was saying that we were supposed to get in Fargo around 4-ish. Then we got a delay after that, and it said 8 o'clock, and then after that, it got canceled, so unfortunately, we had to get a hotel. Our bags are in Fargo. We had to go shopping today. It's bad, man. It's just bad. We can't control what we can't control, so just be patient.
Now, the good news is that at least here in Terminal 1, and for those whose flights are still on time, TSA lines are moving here at the United Terminal. It says about 5 minutes to get through security here. Again, keep tabs on your flights if you are traveling this evening. Be careful when you're heading to the airport. The roads are slick, and keep track of your flight status so that you don't make an unnecessary trip here if your flight isn't actually taking off. Reporting live at O'Hare, Casey Cronus, Fox 32, Chicago.
Thank you, Casey. In Indiana, state Democrats are trying to block a vote on new congressional maps when the State House was called to order this afternoon. 30 Democrats were not in their seats, attempting to deny the chamber quorum.
Now, the effort coming as Republican state lawmakers have released a new congressional map proposal designed to net the party 2 seats in next year's midterms. According to this map, posted on the Indiana House Republicans website, Indianapolis would be split into 4 separate districts, diluting the city's Democratic voters, which are currently represented by Representative Andre Carson. It also splits the more liberal Lake Michigan shoreline area, which is currently represented by Democratic Representative Frank Mervan, into 2 districts. Republicans currently control 7 of Indiana's 9 congressional districts. This map will be considered this week by State House Republicans. However, it remains unclear if the proposal would pass in the Senate. Last month, 19 Republicans joined with Democrats to vote against reconvening in December on redistricting, President Trump backing the push to redraw the map.
Some good news for anyone who wants to check out the Christkindlmarket at Daly Plaza. The long lines should be dying down at least a little bit. Just hours before the market opened for the season last month, organizers were hit with a hard capacity of a little more than 1,500. Now, this is only the second time ever there has been a hard capacity. The last time was 2021 during COVID, and that limit was nearly 3,500. Organizers tell us the city's reasoning for the capacity is due to a new interpretation of city code. Now, regardless of the reason, a lot of people are pretty upset. They have to wait in incredibly long lines that wind down LaSalle Street. But today, the city just agreed to increase the capacity to 2,500. Still, organizers say that is still 40% below COVID levels, and the vendors are feeling the impact.
So for our vendors, that means they're fighting for survival. Many of them, or basically all of them, have had to let temp staff go. You know, they're workers here for the holidays, the seasonal workers who now are undoubtedly looking for other seasonal work, trying to find out, you know, where they can get a little extra money for the holidays. So it has a very real impact on everyday Chicagoans that help us put on this market.
In a statement, the city of Chicago says it appreciates everyone who works to make the market an iconic holiday season destination, and that its main priority is to make sure it is held safely and successfully. The city also says it's going to keep working with organizers to increase the capacity in line with city code.
A rare changing of the guard at the top of Cook County's criminal justice system.
Cook County officials swore in a new Cook County chief judge who will oversee a system rife with controversy. Political reporter Paris Schutz has the latest on this. Paris.
Yes, Constantly, what a pivotal time to take over this sprawling court system. It's Judge Charles Beach. He is the new chief judge. He takes the spot after 24 years under the leadership of Tim Evans. Now, Beach and